I'm okay. Hello, everybody. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you might be. Hope everybody's having a day. The day that they deserve, whether that's good or bad. I hope it's going how it should. I'm doing what are your favorite theist arguments? The ones where we get to talk about, like, data, quantitative evidence. Those are my favorite. Do you mean which are the theist arguments that I think are the best? Well, that's a different question. How early are you going to leave? I have about a little bit more than 3 hours. Anyway, here we are here. And I guess we're ready to any fleet debate? I don't know what that means. Flurf debate today. No, I'm taking a break from the Flurf thing. I might do climate change, though, later this week. Happy Monday. Is it a happy Monday? I don't know. My water full? Mostly. Great. Any news on you being on the line? No, they've been pretty quiet, but like also I'm not going to be mad at them for it. Like I keep pinging, but yeah, it probably won't happen at least until I'm back in the States. Oh, we have a guest. Let's bring up a guest.
Hey man,
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good, bro. So why don't you believe in God, bro?
Well, it doesn't seem like the people who... Let me rephrase. It doesn't seem like the evidence I've been given it's not very good. Like the reasons are just not very convincing.
Okay,
So why
but
don't you tell me what God you believe in?
Oh, I'm Christian.
Okay. And so what do you think is the most convincing thing that you could tell me that would...
Look, Oh, what you want to say something?
Well, I was just saying, like, what do you think is the most convincing thing you could tell me to become a Christian?
Look, at the end of the day, it's just faith, right? So, it's really just faith. I'm gonna keep it a buck, bro. Like, I actually had a question. Like, I already had a question, most of it. I just wanted to ask you something.
Yeah, sure.
Like, so, like, I've been questioning this, like, the belief and everything, because, like, I had a question about like when Moses split the Red Sea and how it's not documented, because I remember the Egyptians would document everything and like they would like draw it or like just document it in some way, but archaeologists could never find anything related to Moses or the Red Sea or anything like that. So like that got me questioning about stuff, if it's really even true, if it really happened.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you ask archaeologists, they'll tell you there is no evidence for a mass exodus from Egypt of Semitic-speaking people. They'll just tell you it's not true.
Yeah, so that makes me question on like what else is not true in the Bible, because the Bible says that there's this and that, but then there's that, for example.
I mean, I agree. I agree that it should make you question.
So wait, when
I mean,
you
it
die,
absolutely should.
so when you die, do you think you should just become black, or like before you were born? Is
Yeah,
that
I
what
think
you
so.
think? Is that scary to you, or like
No, not really.
no? Oh, that's crazy, gang. Well, that's all I really wanted to say, bro. I can't convince you because I don't have that much knowledge, like to convince you, gang. So like, but yeah,
All
bro, that's
right,
all I
fair
wanted
enough.
to know. Yep.
Well, thanks for being here, brother.
Yep. Bye.
Take care. How's my audio sound? I noticed that it was triggering when I was breathing, and I didn't like that. So, is my audio okay? Were you hearing me breathing? bring up another guest. Scotty doesn't know. Oh. After that song, it's pretty clear that Scotty does indeed know. Scotty, how's it going?
Hey. So I only really had one specific question. I've seen, it's actually crazy. I didn't even know you did lives, but a while back, well, actually, I'll cut to, I saw your TikToks of like informative physics knowledge, but the question I had was sort of about the one-way speed of light. Like what, I know.
So
it's like,
I have to cut you off here. I do Ask a Physicist lives on Wednesdays. So come back on Wednesday around the same time.
Can you just tell me about okay, do you believe
it's a long story.
Okay. But you know
come back on
about?
Wednesday. The simple answer is that the one-way speed of light in relativity is not well defined.
Okay.
But I can give you the longer answer if you come back on Wednesday.
Wednesday at what time? Because I actually
around the same time as now. I usually start about half an hour later than now every day. So, if you come at half an hour from now, but on Wednesday,
okay,
I'll be live.
Is this more of like a theological? I guess, yeah, based on the problem. Okay.
Yep.
All right, that's fair. But I'm
Take care,
really
brother.
curious about. Okay. All right.
Make sure to come back on Wednesday. There will be a Wednesday live this week. Don't worry. Feel like being an atheist is closing your mind? How do you figure? Like, are you saying I should be agnostic and then just be like unsure, or like what's the alternative here? Let's talk to me.
Yep. Hello.
Me, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Glad to hear it.
So,
What God do you believe in?
Sorry, is my mic weird?
I can hear you. I just want to know what God you believe in. That's all.
Oh, the Christian God?
Okay, great. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. So I think if you want to see the evidence, especially from a physicist standpoint, that God is real, you can just look at the trees, because the highest water can go, like in a straw or something, is like 30 feet, right?
The highest water that water can go in what?
Like much higher than that.
Oh, you're talking about the pressure effect. I don't actually know what the name is, but that's because a tree isn't a straw, right? There's mechanical processes that bring the water up.
Yeah, but if you like cut a tree open, it has this things like a little tubes and capillaries going.
Well, yeah. So capillaries are not straws. Capillary action is not just suction, right?
Yeah, but even though, even if you account for the like capillary action or whatever, I highly doubt it's gonna reach like whatever 100 feet trees that we have. Sometimes even higher than
Well,
that.
it does, and it's a well-understood phenomenon, and you can go read about it. If you Google, how does water get to the top of trees, you'll find your answer. I don't think it requires God in order to... I don't think God is personally lifting the water up the trees.
No, it's a deity type of force, that the life force that every organism has.
You don't think that physicists... You don't think that scientists have an understanding of how the water gets up to the top?
Yeah, well, you just name capillary action, and
so there's capillary action. There's mechanical functions.
It's not how that's.
How do you know?
It's not possible. It's just capillary.
How do you know?
I'm pretty sure. Like if you
have you looked into this?
Give me the formula.
We can look. Do you want to look into it together?
Plug it into a calculator.
Do you want to look into it together?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right, let's look into it together.
I can bet it's not about capillary action.
There's a Scientific American article answering precisely this question. Oh, so why didn't you Google this, by the way? Like, this is so easy. Why didn't you just Google it? Here, let me display it.
I mean, I heard this in the church. I'm just.
So why didn't you Google it? Right. So I literally typed in, just so you know, how does water get to the top of tall trees? Right. That's literally all I typed in. This is an article from 26 years ago. So there's a description. Water is often the most limiting factor to plant growth. Therefore, plants have developed an effective system to absorb, translocate, store, and utilize water. To understand water transport in plants, one first needs to understand the plant's plumbing. Plants contain a vast network of conduits, which consists of xylem and phloem tissues. This pathway of water and nutrient transport can be compared with the vascular system that transports blood throughout the human body. Like the vascular system in people, the xylem and phloem tissues extend throughout the plant. These conducting tissues start in the roots and transect up through the trunks of trees, branching off into the branches and then branching even further into every leaf. The phloem tissue is made of living elongated cells that are connected to one another. Phloem tissue is responsible for translocating nutrients and sugars, which are produced by the leaves to areas of the plant that are metabolically active. The xylem, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so those are the two tissues that are involved.
Says that it's just a bunch of capillaries, just like you said it.
Well, I actually don't know if that. Well, yeah. So the vessels are quite narrow, so they function as capillaries. So
Okay.
It seems like that's the answer, actually. So what's the issue?
I don't think the numbers make sense on that.
Have you done the math on it, or no?
So I know a guy who did, right? He's
who?
good into physics and all. He's from our church.
Okay. There's another thing explaining this as well. Another author explained the same thing.
Okay, so you say if
So
I
look,
get a
just
tube-
Google it. Just literally Google it. You'll find your answer.
Okay, you know what?
Like, why not just do
here's what
that?
I will do. I'll Google the whatever equation for like a tube, right?
Wait, why don't you just
A
Google
tube
what
of-
the scientific answer is?
Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to get to, right? So I will
Mhm.
go ahead and I saw the numbers on your screen were like 20 to 800 micrometers, right? And I'll like Google the formula for that, for like the tube and capillary and all that. I'll calculate. I'll come back on Wednesday, right? And
Okay.
I'll give you the numbers for like all the calculations for the tube, capillary of that like 30 feet or like 40 feet capillary tube of like 20 microns, okay? And I bet it won't make sense.
Why are you so sure of this?
Because the guy did the math,
And you trust him? Did he show you the math?
Yeah.
Is he actually a scientist, or what is his what's his occupation?
He did good, and he did pretty well in high school.
Does he have
overall
a degree?
No, not in physics. I
So
actually
does he have a
forgot
degree at
what-
all?
Yeah, he went to college. I can't
What
remember
for?
exactly what for. Yeah, no, I'll ask him later.
So why don't you just trust botanists or physicists rather than some random guy in church who, did pretty well in high school?
That's the smartest guy I know, so that's who I'm gonna trust.
What? The smartest guy you know is a guy who did pretty well in high school and then got some degree that you can't remember?
Yep.
Okay, well Google knows more smarter people than that, I guess.
Yeah, but like I can understand like basic math and stuff.
Okay.
And right now I kind of read through that article, and it said basically kind of what the guy said about like the capillary stuff.
Capillary action and
he-
apparently osmotic pressure as well. So you might want to include that in your calculations too.
Yeah, I probably can't do that. The osmotic stuff, I can definitely do the capillary. I'm pretty confident on that.
Okay. But just to be clear, you think that science doesn't have an answer to this question?
So maybe I think that the whatever capillary thing that you guys are trying to explain it with is just not right.
So to be clear, you think that botanists, people who study plants for a living, dendrologists, people who study trees for a living, you think they're just like, yeah, I don't know how the water gets up there. Nobody knows. It's a mystery.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, because you would agree
really
that
think
there
that
are
that's
some
like
unsolved-
that's like one of the most obvious questions that you could ask as like a dendrologist, right? Why would you really think that that's not something that would have been solved by now?
I think there are like a lot of mysteries and unsolved questions in science, and I believe you'd agree on that. You don't have like theory of everything and stuff.
Yeah. So
You
not
don't
having
know
a
how
theory of
gravity
everything and
works.
not having a theory of everything and not understanding how plants work, very different things.
Why do you say that?
Because a theory of everything is concerned with quantum gravity. It's concerned with how time functions. Plants is just like classical physics. Classical physics and a little bit of chemistry.
Yeah, not sure what the difference would be in classical
Classical physics was what Isaac Newton
Renaissance
figured
or
out.
whatever.
Classical physics is what Isaac Newton figured out and then was basically settled in the 100 years after that. So
Okay,
classical
cool.
physics
So
has been essentially solved since the early 1800s.
okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and crunch the numbers on that classical stuff
Okay.
and promise to come back.
All right. Sounds good. Take care of me.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That's got to be a troll, right? I've never heard somebody say that no, dendrologists don't know how trees work. Hey, we got a super chat from Grimlock. Thanks for the $5, bud. That'd be like saying that pulmonologists don't know how lungs work. How does the air get into the body? Nobody knows. Pulmonologists study lungs, by the way. Let's bring up Ocean.
Yep.
Hey, Ocean, how's it going?
I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing all right. What God do you believe in?
What?
What God do you believe in?
The Christian God. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So what do you think is the most convincing thing you could say to me to make me be a Christian?
It would probably be. I'm sure you probably heard about this. The Transcendental argument.
Has that ever worked for you? I mean, like, we can talk about it, but has like it ever worked for you that it like convinced somebody who was an atheist?
Yep.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you want to run it, go ahead.
I've used this argumentation once. You'd probably be the second time I've used it.
And the first time you used it, the atheist was like, "Yep, I believe in Jesus now."
So the first time it was kind of like there was like holes in my understanding of it, so it was kind of back and forth, and then eventually he conceded. So he didn't.
Okay.
He admitted that
did he convert or
couldn't
no?
give an answer. Sorry. So he admitted that he couldn't give an answer or a justification, or he also admitted that his beliefs are no longer coherent compared to the Christian worldview.
Oh, then he made a mistake because I'm sure the beliefs are coherent. In order to have an incoherency, you need a contradiction, or an incoherency, you need a contradiction, right? But we can just go through the argument if you want. So what would you say is, how would you frame it as the first premise?
It would be X is the necessary condition for Y exists, therefore X.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment.
Mm-hmm. So basically,
okay. So now, what are you filling in for X and Y?
Yeah. So it would be, God is a necessary condition for knowledge. Knowledge exists, therefore God.
Okay. How do you justify the first premise?
Basically, it would be for knowledge, you'd need sorry. So basically, for you to even know anything, you are presupposing a lot of abstract categories that are outside your immediate, they're outside of empirical evidence.
I'm presupposing abstract categories? You mean I'm presupposing that they have ontology, or what are you saying I'm presupposing?
Well, yeah. You're presupposing the existence of things in which you are unable to empirically observe.
When you say existence, do you mean like actually having ontology, or?
Yes, ontology, yeah.
Okay, so I don't think that abstract objects have ontology. So I'm not presupposing that.
Okay, so wait, so how about time?
I'm not sure what the nature of time is.
No, wait. So does time exist or doesn't exist?
I'm not sure what the nature of time is. I mean, surely we can make measurements of something. We can make measurements of duration. And in some sense, those
the
measurements are
past,
not
present, and
abstract.
future real?
Um,
Is the past, present, and future real or no?
I'm not sure. It very well could be
You're
that
not sure.
that those notions are illusory. Like generally under the
Okay.
B theory under the B theory of time, which is what most physicists will hold to if they take relativity seriously, they'll say that actually, yeah, past, present, and future are illusions. They're all
illusion.
equally real.
Okay, wait. So you're saying that your past is an illusion? Is that what you believe?
No, it's the distinction between past, present, and future is an illusion. That like the past exists just as much as the present does, which exists
Mhm.
just as much as the future does.
Yeah, no. So I think you're making a mistake here. So obviously they do exist, but they're distinct.
Oh, I mean,
Well,
sure,
yeah.
you can draw a distinction between them, yeah,
Yes.
but they're
yes,
all
so-
equally real. And so
Yeah. Wait. So
to
they are
say
real.
that
You just said that you just said that you're not sure if they are
they're
real.
they're equally real.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
careful.
nobody
It could be that none of them are
nobody
real, and then they would still be equally real.
Yeah. Nobody disagreed. The question is, do you believe that they do it? Do you believe that time does exist?
I'm pretty agnostic about that. Some depending on my mood, sometimes I take
is it
the
real or you're not sure if they're real?
well, surely as a concept it exists. Like I think that concepts exist in minds. I don't have an issue with that. Whether or
so-
not there
so
is
you
some
believe that
substance or
time is
ontology to time is a
contingent on your
much
mind?
different question.
So you believe that time is contingent on your mind?
Well, surely the concept of time is, right? Now, whether or not that concept
concept-
points to something with ontology external of minds is a different question.
Wait. So do you believe? I'm assuming you believe dinosaurs did exist, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So did they exist in the past?
Yeah, that's how I conceptualize it.
Okay, so you believe they exist in the past, but you believe,
Mm-hmm.
but you think the past might not even be real, just an illusion.
Well, yeah, so the way that we conceptualize time might be different from how time actually is, right?
No, but no. So even if you conceptualize time in a different manner, there's still the thing called time that either exists or doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's the question. I don't know. I mean, time could just be what a clock does. Time could be, in essence, just a relation between objects. You know, and there is a well-founded way to describe this. It's in a quantum mechanical way. But alternatively, it could be like some intrinsic property of space-time, where space-time has some sort of ontology. I just don't know.
Isn't time necessary for you to conduct scientific research?
So our conception of time surely is, in that we have to be able to, take actions, if that's what you mean. But are you asking? Like
when
the way that we conceptualize things is not the same necessarily as the way things actually are.
Yes, but I'm asking you. So, aren't you presupposing the existence of time when you're conducting scientific research?
Not necessarily. In fact, there are plenty
Yeah.
of people who work like in a non-temporal way.
Okay.
Like
tell
in
me,
fact,
how
there was
you
actually a study that demonstrated that you can have a notion of time that is purely relational, i.e., illusory in this sense that I've been talking about.
So wait. Did that study happen in the past?
Sure.
Okay, so you're presupposing the existence of time.
I'm presupposing a conceptualization of time. I don't see what the issue is. Like, surely I agree. I can talk about yesterday. I can talk about tomorrow. The question is whether those notions are like, whether those notions have like their own genuine ontology, or whether they're just like ways that we as organisms kind of think about the world.
Oh, wait. Sorry. Repeat that again. Sorry.
It's a question of so look, we have a whole bunch of different concepts. We can have a concept of like I don't know, a unicorn, right? We could have a concept of a unicorn. But then there's a question of whether that concept points to something that has ontology in the world. Now, presumably you and I agree that unicorns don't exist. So they don't have ontology, but the concept exists. And that's like a purely mental thing. We can conceptualize it and think about it. We can even tell stories about it. And then you would have to presuppose that concept exists in some particular notion of the word so that you can tell a story about what happened to the unicorn in your imaginary story, right? The issue is, or it's a similar issue with time. Time might not have like some sort of physical ontology. It might not have some sort of ontology at all. We can still conceptualize it and tell interesting stories. That's the point that I'm making, and I'm just not sure. In fact, the scientific community is out on this topic. Like, it's not clear at all if time has ontology, like from a scientific perspective.
Okay, but when you say, so like for watches, right? So you use watches to help you sort of measure time.
Yeah. So in a sense, that's how we conceptualize it again. But really, it's measuring relationships between what are at base level quantum objects, right?
Okay.
It could be that it could be that what we conceptualize as time is like an emergent phenomenon from some like more fundamental ontology of like quantum systems interacting, or something like that.
Okay. So all right. So if you're skeptical on the actual existence of time, so
to be clear, I'm not like skeptical. I'm just agnostic. Like I just don't know.
Okay, so you don't. Isn't that skepticism?
Perhaps. Yeah. Okay. No. You're right. You're right. That is a. Typically people use the word skeptic to say like, oh no, you don't believe in such a thing. But like, I could go either way. I'm just not sure.
I mean, no, you got who's that guy? There's that atheist skeptic. That I've forgotten his name. But anyway, so what are you? So what do you believe anything actually exists?
I think that the world exists in some sense. I just don't know what the fundamental ontology of the world is, right? Like, it might be that the fundamental ontology of the world doesn't include space-time, and it's just like some like wave function thing, whatever that might mean.
I don't know what you mean by fundamental ontology. It's just ontology.
The thing that like the bottom layer of reality, whatever that might be, and everything else might just be emergent on top of it.
Okay, so you believe that the world exists, but you don't know if time exists.
I just don't know what the makeup of the world is. I don't know if time is like some emergent thing that like we like conceptualize based off of like some much more fundamental thing, or maybe time itself is some fundamental physical property of the universe. I don't know.
Okay, no, but I'm saying that. So when I'm saying existence, meaning that it actually has, that it is a real thing that's not contingent on human or any being's conception. So
let me ask a different question, because maybe this would help. So would you say that like wetness exists?
Yes.
Okay, and would you say that that's an abstract thing or a physical thing?
It'll be a physical thing.
Okay, so in the sense that I think that wetness exists, I would agree that time exists. But like wetness is not like some fundamental property of the universe that has like some physical, like it's kind of like an emergent thing that happens when you have other more fundamental objects.
So if a rock is wet, right? It isn't contingent on me to be able to perceive that's wet, whether I exist or don't exist.
But what wetness is not like some fundamental property of the universe, right?
What do you mean fundamental? I'm just saying, does it in the universe, is it actually wet or not?
So wet is a category that we came up with, right?
No, but no. It is, because the word wetness is a symbol referring to something.
What does it refer to? What does it refer to specifically?
Referring to the state of something.
What state is it referring to?
So in the context, when I mentioned the rock, it is referring to the state of the rock.
So no, I'm talking about the wetness. What does the wetness refer to?
So the wetness refers to the state of something in
So I agree that something being wet.
Yeah.
That's no problem. That is a thing that is some physical property, right? But what is wetness? Does wetness exist?
Well, yes. No,
the thing in itself, the property itself, as opposed to the property as applied to something. That's the question. Because like I agree, in some sense, it's very clear that there are emergent durations. Like we can measure things that take time, right? We can measure that. Mm-hmm. But what is but the thing that I'm not sure about is what is time actually? Not just like some property that we can measure that emerges, that whether or not it's emergent or not, that's a different question. And I agree that like a rock can be wet, but does wetness on its own exist?
I mean, it's a descriptive word, right? It is a
Wetness
it
is
is-
like is a noun. It's not a descriptor word. It's like some sort of
you're-
some sort of like abstractification of like some property that exists independently of any other of like any other object, right?
Okay, wait. By your definition, it has ontology.
No, my point is that I'm fine with things being wet. I'm not. I don't know if wetness exists. If I said
Okay,
otherwise, then I misspoke.
Okay. So I was assuming that something being wet was basically the definition of what you meant by wetness.
So the analogy I'm making is that wetness is to time as something being wet is to something taking a duration. So time is like the essence of duration, just as wetness is the essence of a thing being wet. But I'm questioning whether the essence thing exists, not whether the property exists. I don't have an issue with the property.
Okay, so all right. How about this? All right, do you believe you exist?
Sure.
All right. Do you do you know you have ontological existence?
I think I kind of have to. Yeah.
So is that yes? Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
believe you
Sure.
have-
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Okay. All right. So how do you know that?
Well, because I can't not know it. It's kind of self-evident to me, I should say.
You believe
It's actually
you
the
believe
only
in
thing that's self-evident to me.
You believe in self-evident maxims.
I think that this is probably the only thing that's self-evident.
Okay. I mean, well, so how is it self-evident? So
Because
so
it's the
so
only thing I
basically-
directly like my own consciousness is the only thing I experience.
Okay. How do you know it's your consciousness?
Well, I mean, it's just the consciousness I'm experiencing is what I call my consciousness, right?
Okay. So
Like clearly there is an experience of consciousness.
okay. Well, you're
Or
saying
maybe
it's
and
self-evident.
maybe there's not, in which case it's just an illusion and I don't actually exist. Like, but I kind of that seems kind of silly to me.
Okay, but even if you believe it's silly, you can't. Are you able to demonstrate the evidence to suggest otherwise?
I can't convince you that I exist, at least not with, I can't prove to you that I exist, but I can prove to myself that I exist just by thinking, right?
Well, okay. Well, when you say just by thinking, right? So
Mhm.
anyway,
Just
so
by
you're
having
saying
the experience, right?
okay, but even then, it presupposes you're having the experience. You're presupposing time to have the experience. You're not eternally having the experience.
Not really. I'm
Well, yes, you are.
presupposing that
To
I'm
have an
presupposing that like
experience-
durations happen, I guess. But you could
No,
have
no.
wait, hold on. But like you could have like an eternal experience.
You have.
In fact, that's what you think God
so
has,
you
right?
believe in eternal things. You believe in eternal things.
I don't have an issue with things being eternal, no.
Oh wait, so do you believe in eternal things? Yes or no?
I don't have an issue with things being eternal. With things being
Okay.
timeless or things being eternal. I don't have an issue with that.
Okay, so all right. So so you're wait. So
Yes.
things are timeless. So that means
Mhm.
you believe that. Oh wait, you say you're not even sure if time does exist.
So,
Alright.
so to be clear, when I say that things are timeless, I'm contrasting it with like this kind of emergent notion of time that we talk about in relativity. So there's an emergent notion of time that we talk about in relativity, whether it's emergent or not is up for debate. But there's this notion of time that we talk about in relativity. You can also talk about things that are timeless in the same sense. Now, whether or not that's actually like a meaningful distinction, or whether all time is emergent, that's a different question. But I'm referring to those things in the same sense. But
Okay, so
sorry, so I just want to keep us on track. So you originally brought up the first premise of tag. So how is what we're
yes.
talking about now related to that?
Yeah, basically, well, I'm just saying that all these things, such as space, time, the idea of the self, these are all necessary for your existence, for your human experience, right? Your
Well,
ability to
space and time might not be. I mean, I
Oh.
kind of suspect that they are, but they might not be. Like in principle, you could have I mean, presumably, I have a conscious experience, and under your worldview, God has a conscious experience, but
No,
God
I'm
doesn't
asking
have
you
space
to
and time.
justify. I'm not granting you this premise. I'm justify that you have a conscious experience. Justify.
Look, I can't justify that to you, but if you're not going to accept that, look, I'm not even the one making the argument. You're the one making the argument. So
No,
why don't you justify
no.
your premises?
No. I'm saying no. Number one, I'm saying you're. It's called internal critique, right? You have your
What you haven't even
know
asked
the
me what my
time-
worldview is. Like, aren't you trying to make a transcendental argument?
Yes, to the transcendental argument. I'm saying that all these these are all conditions necessary for knowledge, right? You believe
Wait,
you
so
have
so
knowledge,
my
right?
my own existence is necessary for knowledge? Sure, I can grant you that.
Yeah, of course, right? And
Yep.
I'm saying that in light of the fact, all these your existence or knowledge comes with other presuppositions, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
Bro,
So I would agree
for
that
your
I would agree
knowledge,
that
you're presupposing the self.
I would agree
right?
that knowledge. I would agree that knowledge probably requires a self to have
Yep.
the knowledge, and a world for the knowledge to be about. Although I suppose the
Yep.
knowledge could also be about the self, in which case maybe you don't need a world to have some forms of knowledge, some external world anyway.
Okay, but when it comes to for you to if you're gaining knowledge, right? Aren't you presupposing time? You're not. It's like
I
separate
grant that there is a notion in which systems can be in different states of affairs. I'm totally on
Okay.
board with that.
okay.
Or a single system
So-
can be in different states of affairs. If you want to define time as like the concept by which things differ from, or like a single system differs from itself, then sure. But I would just call that a conceptual notion. I don't know if it has ontology.
Okay. All right. So and where so in your worldview, where does time come from?
Like I told you, I'm agnostic. I don't know what the like foundational ontology of time is, if it has one.
So I'm just saying you're still presupposing all these things and then refusing to have any
So
reason.
I'm happy to have conceptual things. I don't have an issue with
Okay, so-
conceptual things.
Okay, so
I don't know what those conceptual things necessarily point to.
Okay, and yourself is yourself a conceptual thing, or is it?
Well, yeah, I
is it
mean, in
actually-
some sense, it's a conceptual thing, right? But like that's something that I absolutely presuppose that
So-
that I exist, because I don't think I
Okay,
have any
wait.
alternative.
Okay, but you believe that it could also be a conceptual thing, right?
I mean, I think that it's a conceptual thing that points to something that does exist, because I don't really have an alternative.
Okay,
Like I can't not believe that I exist, because by believing I don't exist, I would have to first exist in order to have beliefs, right?
Okay, but then you're also presupposing that yourself is different from myself, right?
Not necessarily. Maybe you don't even exist.
Explain. Explain. So your worldview is you don't know if time exists. You don't know if you exist. You don't know if I exist. So tell me, on what basis are you able to make any claim?
Sorry. So to be clear, like I believe you exist. Like I think it's justified for me to believe that you exist. I just can't like prove that you exist with 100% certainty, right?
Okay. So all right. So
Like I take phenomenological conservatism as like a pretty good starting point. Namely that if something seems to be the case, then I at least have some justification for believing that it is the case. And it does seem to be the case that the external world exists. It does seem to be the case that you exist. It does seem to be the case that, I'm sitting in front of a computer right now. So at least that's some level of justification for holding those
and
beliefs.
what are you using in order to come to these conclusions?
Just my thought processes, myself.
The self. Are you also using your sense data, correct?
Not for phenomenological conservatism. The phenomenological conservatism says that it seems to be the case that my sense data is consistent, so then I at least have some level of justification for believing that my sense data is actually consistent, right?
Okay. So what yardstick are you using to critique when it's consistent and not consistent? Yourself as well, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So you're saying you're presupposing yourself in order to determine the
I'm presupposing myself and that seemings are at least some level of justification. Although really, like I think that I probably axiomatically believe that that an external world exists that is at least somewhat consistent, and that my sense data is at least somewhat consistent. I think I just axiomatically believe those things.
Okay, I mean, but
just to be clear, attacking my worldview says nothing about the defense of your first premise. So maybe we should get back on topic, and you should actually defend your premise, because my worldview is unrelated to your claim.
Okay, but I'm just saying that your worldview has no justification for it. You just
maybe it
asserting
doesn't.
about-
Maybe it doesn't.
Yeah.
That doesn't defend your claim at all. So
Well,
why don't
no,
you actually
but
defend
no,
your premise?
I know we can, but I'm just saying, I'm just pointing out that you seem to be you're asserting a bunch of things, but when in debate, it's just you just can't, like, if you just assert things, then the
I mean,
other position
so I'm
assert the other.
like, we're allowed to have like foundational beliefs. Those are called axioms, or you can
No,
treat them
no,
as brute facts.
No, you can,
those
but
are
they're not-
those are
they're not
absolutely things that you can
self-evident
have.
No, you're
I mean,
allowed to have axioms, but not self-evident axioms.
well, so some axioms may be self-evident. If you disagree with that, that's a you problem, I guess. But like, yeah,
no,
like
it's
I
a-
have some axioms.
it's a
No,
philo-
I mean, like, do you
Nowhere
believe
in
that you exist?
philosophy have they ever allowed to?
What do
someone
you
just
think
to
the
assert-
cogito was? What do you think the cogito is?
No, but still,
That's literally
in debate-
self-evidence.
No, but in debate, right? You can presuppose whatever you like, but you must give a justification. Or
No, you don't.
The opponent.
No, you can just treat
say
it. You can just treat it as an axiom that you accept.
Okay, so then if I just say, "Oh, God is just an axiom I accept," then where does the debate go from there?
Well, then maybe we can't have a debate. But presumably, you came on to try to change my mind, which means that you have to engage
No.
with my beliefs, right?
No, but I'm pointing out, even if we're even go back to my position, that if I just pull
which
the
we should,
same
by the
move
way.
that you're doing, which is epistemic bootstrapping, then you just go nowhere, right?
Well, sure. And then we wouldn't have a conversation. You'd be like, "Well,
No,
that's
but-
your axiom. I have my axioms. Have a good day."
No, but I'm saying, like, how do you even engage in debate if you just assert things?
Well, because
without any justification?
the axioms that I hold, things like the external world exists, things like our sense data is somewhat reliable, things like the individual exists. These are all things that basically everybody accepts, so we can just accept those and then continue to have a discussion.
Okay, no,
But if you don't accept those, then like, man, I can't help you.
well,
Anyway, do you want to defend your position now? Do you want to defend
Okay,
your
yeah,
your
yeah.
first premise?
okay, yeah. So yeah, let's see. So yeah, God is a self-evident axiom.
Well, that wasn't your first premise. Do you want to restate your first premise for us?
Oh yeah, X is the necessary condition for Y. Y exists.
No, I was
X.
talking about I was talking about the first premise. The X is a necessary condition for Y once you fill in the data points. Once you
Okay.
fill in the noun and the predicate, or I guess they're just objects, right? They're not predicates. Because that is truly the first premise of your argument, right? Of the transcendental argument.
What? Yeah.
Like I accept that the
God is
transcendental
the
argument is
necessary condition for-
I accept that the form that you've given is logically valid. The question is are the premises sound? So I want you to defend the first premise so we can evaluate whether it's sound.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. No worries. So God is a necessary condition for knowledge.
Right. Okay. So how do you defend that premise?
Number one, that because God is no. So in light of the fact you don't know everything, how do you know that what you don't know won't contradict what you do know?
Is that a question or an argument?
That's basic. That's it. Both.
Well, why don't you give it as an argument rather than asking a question, because a question
Okay,
isn't
well,
an argument.
Okay. All right. So in light of the fact you don't know anything, in light of the fact you don't know everything, therefore, what you don't know may contradict what you do know. So therefore, you don't know. You can't be sure that you know anything. If that makes sense.
Okay, let me try to steel man this for you, just so then I can make sure I understood. So you're saying it could be the case, it's logically possible that the things that you know are will be contradicted by things that you don't know, and therefore you
Yep.
cannot be sure of the things that you know. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that is that's probably fine, but knowledge isn't about surety, right? If you have a justification, if you have a high credence in a belief, then typically we treat that as knowledge insofar
No,
as that belief is, evidence.
Wait, you
right?
just said knowledge isn't about surety. Or
Yeah, I mean, like if you're talking about surety, then I don't think that anybody has surety about anything except maybe that they exist. Is your claim that like we can't have absolute knowledge about anything? Because I don't see how that's a defense of the first premise. Because if that's the case, then how do you have then how do you know that God exists if you can't have knowledge about anything?
Oh yeah. So then, but it's because God is a self-evident axiom.
Oh, okay, but I don't accept that premise. So if you want to defend the argument, then you have to, defend the premises. Like, you can just assert that, but then I won't accept your premise, your first premise, that it's self-evident, and then your argument just won't be compelling to me, because it's not self-evident to me.
No, but I'm showing you the same thing that you just did. I don't understand.
I wasn't trying to convince you that I exist by saying, oh, it's self-evident that I exist. I wasn't trying to convince you of that. Presumably, you're trying to convince me using tag that God exists. So if you want to convince me, you can't just assert something that you think is self-evident that I also don't think is self-evident. Because that won't convince me. If it's not self-evident to me, then I'm just going to reject the premise, and then your whole argument falls apart.
Okay, but my goal here was to point out the what's it called, basically how ridiculous the position is to reject the idea of God, and then you fall into hyper-skepticism.
Oh, I'm not hyper-skeptical. I just have three things that I accept as true. That's not skepticism at all.
No, so you're not sure of time. You're not sure of yourself. You're not sure of anything.
Well, no. I am sure of myself.
And then you
I'm happy to accept that as an axiom.
You said you don't know. I'm asking you if things exist. You don't know.
So I don't know how I couldn't. And so when I said I don't know, and then I said, well, but if I didn't exist, if I didn't believe I exist, then I would be knowing that I exist by not believing that I exist. So in fact, I have to believe that I exist. So yeah, okay. Absolutely, I believe that I exist.
All right, and so,
I accept that. I accept that the universe. I accept that the external world exists. I accept that my sense data is at least marginally accurate.
Okay, and how do you and how about you said that you don't know if I exist? You can't prove it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I have justification for believing that you do.
What justification do you have to believe that I exist?
Phenomenological conservatism and my fundamental axioms that the external world exists, that my sense data is at least somewhat reliable.
So your justification is self-evident things that you're unable to justify.
No, that the external world exists is not something that's self-evident. Although it's pretty evident. But
that's fundamental axioms, right?
Yeah. My fundamental axioms are that I exist, that the external world exists in a consistent way, and that my sense data is at least somewhat reliable.
Okay, so can you justify your existence? Or
no, those are axioms, buddy. We've been over this. Those are axioms, buddy. I'm not going to justify them.
Justify. So I said that you're not able to justify them, and then you said
no one's. The whole point of axioms is that you don't justify them. That's the whole business.
No, that's actually an assertion.
No, I haven't. If you can justify an axiom that it's not an axiom, it's a theorem. Okay,
well, I suggest that you read David Hume. All right?
I suggest that you learn first-order logic. I understand.
Atheist,
I know who David Hume is. I know who David Hume is. I would suggest you learn first-order logic.
So
you don't justify axioms.
So you clearly haven't got much knowledge on the topic, hence why
I've talked with a lot of tag peoples and they all flounder like you are.
You're just asserting things. And
I'm telling you what my axioms are.
When I'm asking you to justify them, you're saying, "Oh well."
I'm telling you I don't have a justification. I'm telling you that these are axioms. I'm telling you that these are axioms that I accept as true. I don't I'm not trying to convince you that they're true, although I imagine that you believe them. I'm not trying to justify to you that they're true. These are just things that I hold as true. Now, and they're the way for my worldview. Now, if you don't like that, that's fine. You can try to show that there's an inconsistency in these axioms if you'd like, but it's completely irrelevant to the defense of your first premise, which you seemed unable to defend.
I'm showing it's inconsistent by.
Wait, what? Sorry, what's the inconsistency? What's the contradiction?
The inconsistency is that you're saying, "Oh, I can just use self-evident axioms."
What's the contradiction?
When I do this, yeah, the contradiction is that when I do the same thing, then you're saying, "Oh no, that."
I don't have to accept yours. I don't have to accept what you say is self-evident. Self-evident means that it's evident to the self. So a self-evident thing is something that is evident to me. Right?
Okay, and I'm saying, well, and you're not able to justify the.
I'm not trying to. This is a red herring. I'm not trying to justify my axioms to you.
It's not. No, but how is it a red herring when the whole argument is a presuppositional critique? How is that red? The whole debate is a presuppositional critique.
Wait. So your argument is a critique of my worldview. So then why did you? So then you have to adopt my worldview to critique it. Like
no, what?
Otherwise, it's not an internal critique. Wait, are you making an internal or external critique?
Debates have to adopt each the worldview in order to.
Are you
That
making an
makes no
internal
sense.
critique or an external critique?
It's called an internal critique.
If
I'm
it's
not
an internal
adopting it.
critique, then you have to adopt my worldview and then find a
No,
contradiction. That's what an internal critique is. Have you
I'm
never heard
looking-
about?
Yeah,
have
I'm
you-
examining. I'm examining your critique and then
Right,
pointing.
okay.
I'm
So
examining
what's the
your
contradiction
worldview.
with my axioms? What's the contradiction
Yeah,
in my worldview?
Yeah, your contradiction. The contradiction is that within your worldview, you believe that you can presuppose X, Y, and Z, but
Yep.
then other people aren't able to presuppose X, Y,
You
and Z
can,
without
look,
justification.
you can presuppose stuff all you want. It just doesn't
yeah,
have to
without
convince me.
justification.
You can do it all you want. It just won't convince me.
Okay, no, but you don't believe it's equally valid.
Okay.
Yeah. So
why would I
saying-
care about
no,
what
I'm
your
saying-
presuppositions are? How is that
No,
relevant?
I'm saying, no, I was saying that the fact that you can just presuppose all these things, right,
Yep.
and believe that it's valid for you to presuppose it without justification.
It's
But
it's
when
just
the-
something. It's an axiom I accept. I mean, it's if you want to accept a different axiom, you can, and that would be valid for you to accept. It just won't convince me.
No, but you're kind of deviating from what I'm saying. I'm saying that on what basis do you have to presuppose all these things without justification, but then say then don't think of it being equally valid for
Why would
someone
it be
else
equally
to
valid?
presuppose them?
Well, how is that a
Because they're doing
contradiction
the
for me to
exact
think
same
that your axioms are equally valid as mine?
No, but if they're using the same logic as you, well then
The
on
distinction
what
is that
basis
they
can
are
you
not
say-
me. That's the distinction. There's no contradiction there.
No, it is a contradiction because they're
What's
doing
sorry?
the same
What's the
thing.
p? What's the p and not p?
You're saying I can presuppose things without
Mhm.
justification,
Yep.
which and it's valid. You believe it. You believe you can do that and it's valid, correct?
So I can presuppose things, which means that I hold beliefs
Yeah.
about things that I can't justify.
Yeah.
Sure. And you can
And it's a
also hold
valid-
beliefs
and-
about things that you can't justify. Both things are true.
No, but you're saying no, but you believe that when you do it, it's valid. But when the
When I
opposing
do it,
person
I
does
believe them, and when you do it, you believe them. There's no
No, but I'm
contradiction
saying
there.
is it no. I'm saying that when you believe that when you do it, you believe it's valid. But when the
What do you mean by valid?
I
Like,
do
it's
it,
not an
not
argument. What do you mean by
No,
valid? It's
you
not an
believe-
argument.
You believe. I'm saying that you believe that it's when I say valid, I mean that you believe that it is sound. It is sound and it is reasonable.
Yes, I believe that the things I presuppose are sound. True.
No,
And there are
no,
other
bro,
things that I
I'm
don't
saying
believe that I don't believe are sound.
No, I'm saying that you are what I'm saying is that you're presupposing things without justification, and you believe pulling that move is sound.
Sorry, one sec.
However,
I have to
All
respond
right.
to a message. I just got a message. Okay, go ahead.
all right. So what I'm saying is that you believe that you can presuppose things without justification, and
Mhm.
you can pull that move, and that move is sound and valid. But when someone does the exact same thing to you, you believe that is not valid and it's not sound and it's not reasonable.
So if you want, I'm not saying, I think the mistake that you're making is this. I'm not saying that you have to think that my axioms are sound. And I don't think,
No.
and I don't have to think that your axioms are sound. We can disagree on axioms. And then we can either try to work out whose axioms are like more theoretically virtuous or something like that, or we could, have some other discussion about like comparing axioms or something like that. Or we could just not have a conversation. But it is not a contradiction for me to say, yes, I believe one set of axioms is sound and another set of axioms isn't. Like there's no contradiction.
The contradiction is that when the opposing party does the same thing and comes to the same conclusion, well, a different conclusion, you believe it's not sound. That's
yeah,
the
because
issue.
I don't believe I don't agree with their axioms. I don't think their axioms are true.
But how can you add more value to one?
Because I believe the things that I
Oppose-
believe, and I don't believe the things that you believe.
and why do you believe the things that you believe?
Because they seem evident to me.
They seem so because
Yeah, they seem true. They
evident.
seem true. Yep.
And but what justification do you have for them?
Phenomenological conservatism.
And you already stated that basically it's just all these axioms that you just won't justify.
Well, that is some level of justification, but it's not a deductive justification. Phenomenological conservatism is just that the
that's
way things seem to be. That gives you some level of justification.
the way things seem to be. But you're still presupposing that you have a coherent understanding of the external world.
Yeah, so can you demonstrate that there's an incoherency by finding a contradiction?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I would say that the incoherency is the fact that you assert all these things in order to make your worldview seem coherent, but you're
How is
unable
that
to
an
justify.
how is that an incoherency? Do you know what a coherentist view of truth
Incoherency,
is?
yes. So an
Do you know what a
incoherency-
coherentist view of truth is? A coherentist view of truth is? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, yeah. Wait, a coherence.
So then where's the
a
incoherency?
coherence is-
Where's the incoherency in my worldview?
is-
Where's the
is
contradiction?
assertions without justification. That's the incoherency.
Wait, how is that a contradiction?
It's not. It's incoherence.
An
Incoherence doesn't
incoherency
doesn't
is
need a
just a contradiction that
It
you can
doesn't need a
derive from.
contradiction.
Yeah,
No,
sure it does.
no.
Well, then
it's
I
when
don't know what
logic
you mean
is-
by incoherency. What do you mean by incoherency then if you don't mean a
means
contradiction
that-
derivable from some
that
axioms?
there's a breakdown in logic, basically.
So
there's-
what's the breakdown in logic? What's the
Is that you're just-
violation of one of the laws of logic?
Is that you're basically just the presupposition of things without justification.
Sorry, which law of
Or
logic is that a
assertions.
violation of? Oh, he decupped. Oh, you're back. Which law of logic is that a violation of? Which one?
It's a. Let me see. It's not just you. It's because you're just asserting things.
You said that it's a breakdown of logic, so which law of logic is it violating? Which law of logic is breaking down?
It's not just ad hoc. Let me see.
You can say it's ad hoc if you want. I mean, like there
Yeah,
are
isn't
like,
that-
like
yeah,
you
isn't
might
that-
say
isn't
that
that-
like you might say that that's just like supposing that these axioms are true is ad
Yeah.
hoc, but I don't think that you actually do because you also accept
Oh, wait,
these
all right,
axioms.
so
You
wait,
just derive
so
them as
define
theorems.
to me what ad hoc is. Define to me what
Ad hoc generally means something that has something that has no justification for why it couldn't be another way.
Okay. No, so ad hoc is just when is basically you're saying things without justification.
I mean, if that's how you're using it, then yeah. Then if that's how you're using the word ad hoc, then yeah, these axioms are ad hoc. Sure.
Okay, so an ad hoc is allowed in a debate.
I mean, if you just mean having axioms that you hold are true, that is foundational to all debates. Yeah.
No, but you can have axioms, but you can't have self-evident axioms.
Sorry, what is an axiom if it has a justification? Are you familiar with how that makes it not an axiom?
Well, basically, when I'm saying axiom, I'm basically referring to presuppositions.
Okay, so presupposition can't have a justification. Otherwise, it's not a presupposition,
Yes, it
right?
can. Yes, it can have a.
Then it's not a
justification.
presupposition. Then you have a justification for it.
Yes, it is. No, you presuppose things, and you can give reasoning as to why you came to this presupposition.
Then that reasoning is your justification. So you didn't need to presuppose it.
Yeah. No. For example, no. Your presupposition could be the absurdity of the contrary, right? That's a justification.
Presupposition is the absurdity of the contrary. The absurdity of the contrary of what?
Your presupposition can be an absurdity.
Well,
of the
that's a
contrary.
justification. That's a justification.
Yes,
That's not a presupposition.
Yes,
then.
that is a justification.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you? You're telling me that you have a justification that you can show that all other worldviews are absurd? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, but
so how do you do that?
I'm saying that it doesn't. It doesn't.
And
work
by the way, to be clear,
No.
how does so in order to to be clear, I shouldn't let this pass. If you make the claim that the justification for something that you would like to presuppose, which is really just a theorem at this point, then, if you want to justify something by saying that the contrary is absurd, then what you're doing is you're actually presupposing something deeper. You're presupposing logic.
Well, yes.
So are you saying that? So you presuppose logic then, right? You
Yeah, and I
actually
can
can't justify
justify it.
logic at all.
Yes, I can. I can justify it. See.
Oh, how do you
I don't-
justify
I
it?
don't
How do you
hold
justify it without being circular?
No. So every worldview is inherently circular.
Oh, okay. So are our worldviews equally good?
Well, no, but no every worldview is coherent.
Okay, so and by coherent you mean what?
It has a let's see that. So yeah, so there's a level of circularity. So there's what you get. What are the two levels of circularity you get? You get the I'm sure you're familiar.
I'm trained as a mathematician and a physicist. I don't know what two levels of circularity you're referring to. I just know the one type of circularity where you assume the conclusion.
On an epistemic level, yeah, circularity is allowed because
that's what you mean.
You are within the paradigm, right? So, for example, if you're telling me to basically justify words, right, I'm going to have to use words in order to justify words, right? So on that level,
sure, okay, sure, that's what you mean.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So when I'm justifying logic, I'm allowed to use logic in order to justify logic.
So circularity is allowed, but it's still like, actually, no, I take that back. What do you mean by justify words? Words aren't propositions. Words are like more primitive than that.
No, but words are symbols, right? Referring to things in existence, right?
Or they refer to relations or conceptions. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But what do you mean by justify words? I don't know what that means.
Let me see how I can explain this. So if I'm...
To be clear, words are not propositions that need justification.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah, I agree with that. So, but anyway, let's just say logic, right? So I'll still need to be using logic in order to justify logic, right?
Right. You would. So you just have to accept that logic is true in order to make any sort of justification claims. That doesn't actually give you a grounding for logic, by the way. That just presupposes it, and then you just have to accept it as true.
But so my grounding is in the divine mind, but I'm not just asserting.
Oh no, sorry, you can't do that because the way that you determine that the divine mind exists is by the absurdity of the absurdity of the I'm missing the word. Contrary. Thank you. It's by the absurdity of the contrary, which is presupposing logic. You can't use the divine mind to justify logic when in order to justify the divine mind, you need logic in the first place.
No, but if the divine mind is prior to logic, I don't understand. What do you mean?
Well, it can't be, because in order to justify the existence of the divine mind, you need logic to begin with. And actually, even beyond that, in order to get to a divine mind, in order to get to your beliefs, you have to presuppose that your sense data is reliable.
Yes, so So
you do agree with my axioms. You agree that you have a presupposition that your sense data is reliable.
I can justify.
Oh, okay. How do you justify it?
So you justify it by the divine revelation.
Oh, how did you receive the divine revelation?
Right. By the divine mind.
No, how did you receive it? How did it get to you?
Get to you because of the personal being that we are made in their image, so therefore we're able to trust our sense data.
So by reasoning, so you're just believing that your reasoning is reliable?
Oh no, so
you just drew an inference, my guy.
What was that?
You just drew an inference, and an inference is a type of reasoning.
Wait, I'm sorry. How do I draw an inference? Sorry.
The inference is that if you have some sort of internal experience, and that internal experience actually, I got that backwards. I'm sorry. Your claim was that because we're made in the divine image, it follows that your sense data is reliable. That is an inference. Because A, therefore B. That's what an inference is, right?
Yes.
So now you're presupposing that your inferences or that your reasoning faculties are reliable?
Well, yes, because of the divine mind or the divine being.
But how did you know that the divine mind existed? Sorry. Seems like you had to reason your way there, didn't you?
Because you need because the divine mind, divine being is outside of this. Is outside of the let's see, outside of the universe, outside of the paradigm,
Oh, and how did you
So-
come to that conclusion?
Because the divine mind is a personal being that reveals this information.
Yeah, so so you came to that conclusion via some other thing, and then you reasoned that conclusion follows, which means that you're presupposing that your reasoning is reliable.
Well, did I reason or was it?
That's what an inference is. An inference is a type of
The
reasoning.
divine mind had said so.
No, I mean an inference is a type of reasoning. So yeah.
No, but I'm saying that's because the divine mind has said that we can be sure of our reasoning.
Yeah, and then
Because
taking the things. Wait. So the divine mind said this? Where did the divine mind say this?
Oh no, I'm referring to the Bible. Yeah.
Oh, but how
Other-
did you know
other
that the
divine
Bible is?
mind.
How did you know that your sense data was reliably representing the Bible? I mean, you had to read the Bible, and that uses
yes.
your eyes, right?
Yes. Yeah. So you're talking
So
about
you have to-
epistemic.
So you
Yeah,
do have
yeah,
to
so-
you do have to presuppose your.
It's not me.
your
Just
sense
that
data.
Well, we believe we have a infallible process, which would be the councils in which determine the interpretation.
Right. And in order to read their writing or to learn about their writing, you have to either hear it from a preacher or you have to read it in a book. So you have to rely on your sense data.
Yes.
Okay, so you're presupposing that your sense data is reliable.
Yes, but I've already given justification.
Great.
I don't look at that.
No, but you can't justify it because all of your justifications rely on your sense data being reliable.
My justification
It turns
relies
out-
on
It turns
No, my
out, this is super
justification
funny,
relies
Ocean.
on-
It turns out
on-
you have
on
the
the
exact same
divine
fundamental
mind.
axioms I
who is
do.
outside of sense data in order to give me
To even
certainty.
consider that requires reliability of your sense data.
Well, no, if
That's how you
if
came
it's
to that
a-
conclusion, by the reliability of your sense data.
No,
So,
but
Ocean,
it's-
what's
no,
happened
it's by-
here? What's
it's by
happened
the-
here is
it's
by
by
this
the
line of
fact-
questioning.
No, it's by the absurdity of the contrary, right? So
and
if-
the way that you came to the absurdity of the contrary was by reasoning, and the way that you came to the fact that your reasoning is reliable was by sense data.
well, no. So your reasoning.
What you found, what we've discovered here is not only is my worldview incredibly coherent, your worldview starts at the same
no,
place
that
mine
makes-
does.
No. So
Starts
I'm
at that your sense data is reliable, and it also
I
assumes that
give
the external world
justification.
exists.
You haven't given justification. You believe that all.
No, you
these
haven't
things
given justification for
simply
the
just exist.
So you haven't given justification for the reliability of your sense data.
Yes, because yes,
What
I
was
have.
the-
I
sorry,
said
what was the
because-
justification
I
that
said
wasn't- what was your
the
justification that
divine
wasn't
mind
circular?
has said that we can trust our
And the way
our
that you
senses.
figured out that the mindset, and sorry, I was asking for a non-circular justification. Do you have one of those?
No, bro, we've literally agreed that on epistemic
Oh,
level,
so-
everything is
Oh, okay.
on a
So,
foundational level. It's
Yeah. If we're allowed circularity, then my sense data, my justification for my sense data being reliable is that my sense data is reliable. It's circular.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, my sense data is reliable because my sense data is reliable.
No, wait, so that's not what I'm saying. I said that my sense data is reliable because something outside of my sense data can give me certitude of my sense data being reliable.
Who cares how you get to the circularity? It's still circular.
No, but still justification. Sure,
No,
still
it's not-
circular. but
not
still
really.
justification.
It,
Yes,
it's,
it is.
and
It's
mine
a
is a justification too.
Yo, you tried to make a point, but you just pointed out that you it kind of flopped there.
No, I mean the point is that you have a
I
circular
agree that we're
circular
both being
justification. I have a
circular.
circular
I agree
justification.
that we're being circular, but at least I have
Your
a
circular justification is bigger than
Yours-
mine,
you don't
but
have
it's
a
still just as
justification.
circular.
You just
my
yours is just
justification-
circular without any justification.
Wait, no. The
That's what it is.
like the point is that circular justifications are all like if you're giving a circular justification and I'm giving a circular justification, your circular justification isn't any better than mine.
I'm giving a circular justification. You don't have a justification.
No, my justification is that my sense data is reliable. That's the justification. It's circular.
No, but wait, no, that's not justification though.
Sure, it is. A
No,
implies
you're-
A,
no.
therefore A. That's a
No,
justification.
you're no because what you're questioning is my sense data, right?
Well, no,
Right.
what I'm saying, so what we've agreed to now is that you don't actually have any foundational justification for your sense data being true, and neither do I.
No, but I'm saying the divine mind is the foundation for the sense data.
But the way that you concluded that the divine mind exists is via sense data.
It would be
So what you have is a more complicated web of dependencies. I'm sure it could come up with a very, very complicated web of dependencies that would kind of obscure the circularity, but it wouldn't change the fact that we're both providing circular justification for our fundamental axiomatic beliefs.
okay, but within my worldview, right? My justification. Okay, let me see. Okay, actually, you know what? Yes, that's a fair point.
Now, I'd actually like to run something by you. Are you familiar with first order logic or no?
I'm pretty sure I might know under a different name.
So things like formal languages and predicates and quantifiers, those kinds of things. Are you familiar with that language?
Yeah, I know about formal predicates here.
Do you know anything about like quantification and like how these things are like discussed symbolically and all that?
Quantification. No. Do you have like a brief?
Are you familiar with the? Have you ever read the proof of Gödel's incompleteness theorems?
Nope.
Okay, then it might be a little bit hard to convey. So don't worry about it. I just won't run it. It's just an interesting argument that I've been toying around with lately. But it relies on like some symbolic stuff that we don't have to get into. Anything else you want to talk about, or should I just move on to the next guest?
Well. Okay. Wait. Sorry. So regarding my worldview, and which is circular, right? Mm-hmm. So. So do you believe in justified true belief?
It depends on what your theory of truth is. Like that's like the classical definition of like knowledge, right? But like, yeah. I don't have a theory of truth. I don't know, like you know, I have different standards for truth for different scenarios. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if we can ever actually establish what is like with 100% certainty what is true. So like I would say like perhaps evidenced true or justified evidenced belief maybe would be a thing that I would usually use as a stand-in for knowledge.
So but even so with the wait, sorry, you said justified evidence?
Justified evidenced belief.
Justified evidence belief.
So beliefs that are both justified and have some sort of supporting evidence.
Okay. So, okay. Wait, so you believe things, but you're not sure of time's existence?
Yeah. I'm not sure if it's like ontological status.
How does that any way coherent though? If you're not even sure if these things are real?
Well, so to be clear, I'm not sure of like time's ontological status. Okay. Like I'm not sure like what kind of existence it has, if it has like any existence beyond just like some emergent thing that, like in the same way that like I know that like there is like when I say that a rock is wet, there is no like wet property. Really, it just means that it's like covered in H2O molecules, right? But like the notion of like the rock being wet is like an emergent property, and so like I'm happy to agree that like durations and like the perception of like the flow of time, that's definitely emergent. The question is just like what's actually there? Like, is time some fundamental thing that like some fundamental physical property of the universe, or is it just something that emerges from something deeper that we don't understand? That's just what I'm agnostic about.
Okay, but and how do you believe that time came to? So do you believe time is eternal, or did it begin?
So I lean to. So again, putting the caveats aside of like I don't actually know what time is. In the like with a classical understanding of time, I lean towards the universe having always existed, but honestly, I could go either way.
Okay. Okay, and the idea. How about space?
I think that I think that in some sense, in any way that you might any properties or ontology that you might ascribe to time, I think you should equally well ascribe to space.
Okay, so you don't believe, so you're not sure about space's existence?
I'm not sure about its ontology. I'm not sure about like its, you know, yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm not sure about its ontology. Again, I'm happy to say that there's like this emergent concept that we have. of like distances and places, I'm absolutely happy to agree that that emergent concept exists. The question is just like, what is it actually?
Okay, so is there anything you are sure of that isn't just a concept?
So there are things that I believe. I don't know, like I said, I'm not sure if we can ever come to like 100% truth, like establish with 100% certainty that anything is true, except perhaps that ourselves exist. But like there are things I believe, and I think we have good reason to believe them.
No, but so are there things you believe independent of your existence or your mind?
Yeah, I believe that the outside world exists.
Okay, and sorry, how did you come to that conclusion?
It seems to be the case, and it seems like I don't know how to interact with the world unless I believe that, and so perhaps it's a function of my psychology that I can't believe something else.
Okay, well, so why is it you kind of put a value on the ability to interact with the external world? I'm asking you, well, basically, where does this value come from?
Who knows? It might be a part of my psychology.
Okay, so you believe that the value is just subjective, correct?
Well, yeah, I mean, surely things I care about aren't necessarily things that you care about, right?
All right. So, okay, so is there anything that actually has objective value?
Can you tell me what you mean by value before I give an answer?
Well, let's see. By value, I'll be something that actually has I guess importance.
No, I
That's
think that
kinda vague.
importance is a subjective notion.
Okay. All right. So okay. So
to be clear, I don't think that
have
I don't think that you think that importance is an objective notion either. I don't think that anybody
Importance?
thinks that. Yeah, importance or
Importance of
value. I
things?
don't.
Yeah.
I don't think that value is objective, and I don't think that anybody thinks that value is objective.
Well, yeah, anyone that believes in some sort of higher being would hold to the idea that things such as things have importance or degree of importance or things or like morality. Yeah, you need.
Well, they might think that it has those properties relative to stances that like the God being holds, but that's just subjectivity of the God.
Well, no. So you need you need an objective. You need something outside of your outside of the human mind in order to provide objectivity to these things.
If it's located within a mind, it's subjective. It doesn't matter if it's in a human mind or a God's mind.
Well, how is
That's what subjective means.
What other subject could no, but if it's the highest, if it's, but we're talking about within the universe, right? You need something
So,
outside of the universe.
Objective means that it doesn't depend on a mind, and subjective means that it does depend on a mind, right? That's just what the words mean. At least that's how I use them.
No, I'm when I'm saying subjective, I mean it differs from person to person.
Oh,
So I'm
oh yeah.
referring
Then
to
I think that
this.
there probably are things that are not subjective in that sense. I'm sure that there are things
Well,
that every person alive values. I'm sure that there are things that every person alive disvalues.
Yeah, no. So yeah. So you'd hold to everything being subjective. Well, ultimately being subjective.
No. But if your definition of subjective is just it differs from person to person, I'm sure I could come up with some example of something that doesn't differ from person to person. It could, but it doesn't.
Wait, is there something? Wait, so what
Probably.
thing doesn't differ from something to something? Like different from person to
Probably
person?
that somebody wants to probably the statement that a person doesn't like, or that let me rephrase, the proposition that displeasurable things are bad, that doesn't differ from person to person.
Well, that's just a matter of opinion, right?
No, it's kind of actually like analytically true, right? That's what it means for it to be displeasurable.
No, but Wait, I'm sort of confused to how you managed to get objectivity from
No, it's not
people's
objective.
opinion.
Well, it's objective in your sense,
it's
but not
subjective.
not in my sense. It's objective in the
Subjective.
sense that every person believes it.
Wait, I don't believe it's objective. I believe it's subjective.
But every person believes it, and your definition of subjective was that if it differs from person to person. So if it doesn't differ from person to person, i.e. if it's the same for every person, then it's not subjective under your definition.
Okay, wait. So how does your claim not differ from person to person?
Because typically, I mean, unless this is a language barrier thing with some people, but what is meant by bad is experiencing something displeasurable.
Okay.
So it's like analytically true that this is true for all minds, right?
Wait. So sorry. Or what's the claim that's true for all minds, sir?
That experiencing something displeasurable is bad. That's what's meant by bad.
Okay, but you're still applying some sort of value that I'm asking you, well, where does this value come from?
Well, I think it's analytically true. I think if you're asking like where does the ability to feel displeasure come from?
No, I'm talking
my
about
guess would be evolution.
I'm talking about the yeah, I guess the how someone, on what basis do you have to say it is objectively bad? I'm talking about
so if by objective you just mean it's the same for everybody. Well, that's just it's just what the word means.
No, by objective I mean that it is unchanging and isn't contingent on culture, place, or time.
Okay, but then that's not that's not dichotomous with your definition of subjective.
Wait, how? Sorry.
So your definition of subjective was not what was different from person to person. And your definition of objective was unchanging and independent of culture and all of that stuff. And those are not one's not the negation of the other.
No, but the way it differs from person to person is because of the three things I stated.
That's an additional stipulation, but those two things are not dichotomous, right?
So tell me, why is it that people have differenting of opinions then?
Well, they don't have differences of opinions about that proposition that I just gave you. But they will have differences of opinions about other things, sure.
I mean, I'll disagree with that, but...
Find me one person for whom experiencing displeasurable things is not bad. Oh, wait.
It would be well, no, you'll still be presupposing the idea of good and bad, and then
no, I'm defining bad as the experience of displeasurable things.
But you're still, if somebody is going to say, "Oh, this experiencing displeasurable things are bad," well, then the question is, well, on what basis do you have to determine that's bad? Why is it not
I
good?
just gave you the definition that I'm using for this proposition.
Oh, okay. Okay, all right.
The proposition uses the definitions that I'm, giving it, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Anyway.
Anything else?
Nice.
Okay. Take care, Ocean. Thanks for being here.
Cheers.
Why don't any precepts know any formal logic? They really should. Do I want to talk to Cody today? I feel like we've spoken a lot, right, Cody? And I have a lot of guests that are new. I should probably get to them, right? All right, I'm going to bring up nobody. Nobody, can you hear me? Nobody, are you there? Ain't nobody there. See what I did there? Bada bing, bada boom. Ayo. Sorry, I'm a bit in a goober mood. All right. It looks like nobody's not here. Isn't there there's an Odyssey reference here that I'm missing? there's definitely something that I'm missing. Like I could have called him like Polyphemus or something like that. That would have been funny. All right, let's bring up a guest from TikTok. True, if nobody's not here. That's a good, yeah, well, no, but I wanted to do a Polyphemus reference. Yeah, there you go. Nobody won the debate. Nobody blinded me. There you go, Matthew. I appreciate that. That's what I wanted. That's what I wanted. All right, come on. Come on, TikTok. Sorry, TikTok's being slow. Almost. All right, let's bring up Sorry Not Sorry, eh?
Hello?
Sorry Not Sorry, how's it going?
Hi, Dr. Blitz. How's it going?
I'm doing all right. What God do you believe in?
I believe in a God.
Do you want to give me some of its properties or like a name that it typically has so that I know which one you're talking about?
Because I don't want to go from 0 to 100.
Well, yeah, but just that way then I don't make any incorrect presuppositions about the argument that you're making. It would be good to know the context. So I have a rule here. If you believe in a God with properties, tell me which one it is, or I'm not going to have a conversation with you.
Okay, okay. I believe in a creator.
Is the creator like outside of physical reality?
No. He's interacting with us, and
No, I mean, but does it like exist outside of physical reality, or is it like an alien that came down and like, you know, just manipulated our genes or something?
No. He exists within our reality and outside reality at the same time.
Why don't you just? So, are you Christian?
Why do you just jump?
Just be honest. Like, it's so dishonest. Just tell me what you are. I'm atheist. What are you?
Okay, I'm a Christian, but like, why?
Okay,
why
you're a Christian. Great.
Why do you want to go there?
Just that way, then I don't make any incorrect presuppositions about the thing that you're defending. Because if I don't know what you believe, I might make a mistake and assume that you believe something that you don't. That's all.
No, but even when I say I'm a Christian, I feel like you have wrong presuppositions on it.
What I know is that you believe in a God that is all powerful, all loving, all good. That's usually correct for Christians, and that it created the universe.
Okay. That's okay. Stick with that though. Don't stick with like the 7,000 whatever.
Yeah. I'm not going to assume that you're a young earther. I'm not going to assume a sky daddy or whatever. I just need properties. That's all. Otherwise, we can't have a conversation. So, what would you say is
your? Fair. That's fair.
What would you say is your? What do you think is the most convincing thing you could say to me that would convince me that you're correct?
First of all, I was gonna come and talk about just what our existence in humanity is in terms.
Sorry,
of just,
your mic's a little low. What did you say?
Can you hear me?
It's a little bit quiet.
No, I was gonna talk about. Can you hear me now?
Much better, thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about just how descriptive Christianity is about life and just humanity in general.
All right, move a little bit further
and how
away
that is
from the mic now you're peaking.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god, that's some ear grape. You know, there's got to be like a good middle ground, right?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Oh my god.
The Christianity is what happened?
You're like blowing out my eardrums.
Oh, okay, my bad. What's going on? That's good. Okay.
It's like your microphone's
right,
like.
What about
deep in
now?
your
Is it
throat.
good?
Okay, I think you're okay.
No. Okay. So just okay. Talk about like what do you think about like humanity? Let's talk about humanity. What our existence is, right? And that's I know that like toys around with philosophy, but in terms of just our existence and what humanity is in the past And don't give me this like 1,000 billion years like history, because we have pretty much good record of the past 500 years. And let's just start with that. Like, just what does the past 500 years tell us about humanity? And then
It-
if you if you just juxtapose that with what uh, Christianity says about humanity, it's very accurate, right? It just
well,
talks about just like,
it tells us that we're like amazingly productive, and also when a man is given too much power, or a collection of men are given too much power, it goes horribly, horribly wrong.
exactly. And this is what this, and that's a very like appropriate like description of what we are, and that doesn't, that's one of the things that like aligns with our with Christianity. Christianity talks about like this nature of us to love and to blah blah blah. And then when you have um when you have we seem to still fail on like when it comes to power, and like, you know, those things are like that makes us fail. And that's, those two things are very it's a very good description of the past 500 years, right? Let's not go back to like
But
a billion years or 1,000
but just to
years.
be clear, that's not that's not a claim that's unique to Christianity.
But what
Like
who
that's just like evidently the human condition, and like the ancient Greeks knew about this.
and the ancient Greeks addressed it how? How
I
did
mean,
they
like the
address
ancient
it?
Athenians addressed it by democracy, to not put as many people in, or to take away power from, sorry, to what's the opposite, to dilute power as much as possible. They created a democracy, is what the Athenians did.
Well, okay, I'm not saying that Christianity just simply addresses it. Even the way that it addresses it is not necessarily
But then why'd you
like,
ask, how did they address it?
no, I'm just talking about the description. That's one thing. Like, Christianity gives a good description of
Yeah,
the
but so
world we
does like
live in.
ancient Greek. So does like basically everybody. Like this is evidently the human condition, and anybody who's ever, any culture that's ever had like a scholarly examination of the human condition has come to the same conclusion.
That's fair. That's fair. But okay, what about Christianity's offer of um
The offer of,
I was just gonna say like a solution to this, like the way Christianity offers a solution is also a little bit different from most uh way, like most either like religion or like, you know, most philosophies, right? Like, it's just a different way of approaching um
it doesn't really offer a solution to the experience on Earth, though.
well, the solution of just love and self-sacrificial love, and that type of
Well,
solution.
that's not unique to Christianity.
I mean, who else does that? Like, to the extent that Christianity does.
The
I don't think
Baha'is.
the Baha'is speak
I
about.
think I want to say like the Taoists. I mean the Buddhists. They even they're like all about not preferring the self. Right. That's like their whole thing. Like the self is worthless, and that you should not value the self instead. Well, that's a butchering of Buddhist philosophy. But like, yeah, like the point is like this whole business of like, yeah, you should be caring is like obvious. And like everybody who's ever lived and has studied the human condition knows this.
Yeah, but I feel like how the Baha'is and especially Eastern philosophy gets to that conclusion is by, like you said, like this emptying of self philosophy. Like, we don't need to be self obsessed or something like that, and that's how they reach to that way. And Christianity, like, is also is a little bit different. That you don't. It's not like we're not obsessed about like emptying ourselves. And although there's like some correlation, you know, we're not. I guess. Okay, that's a fair clapback. Okay.
W concession. Let's go.
No,
Let's go on it. W debate honesty.
No, I'm trying to first of all like distinguish the Christian God in terms of just describing reality and describing humanity accurately as opposed to many other religions. And that's and I feel like if you do that, if you scrutinize just our history and our like existence to a certain extent, pretty much Christianity is the only thing that stands before you become an atheist. That's pretty much the last line of religion and deity and God and whatnot, because it's such a apt description of the world that we live in, especially because
Well,
we're so advanced
But
with AI and whatever.
But there's an issue here, right? Because the Christianity that you're talking about here is the Christianity of, at the earliest, like the late medieval ages, right? Like this is like the fully matured version of Christian theology that has had 2,000 years to figure itself out. This is not the Christianity of the Bible. The Christianity of the Bible is very different from what you believe. Like if you just take the Bible and you just read it, you will get a very different view of what the world is, what the world's problems are, how it's going to be solved, all of these things than what you believe. You believe that, plus all of the stuff that all of the, the church fathers said about it, and all of the stuff that, like, the various, I don't know what exactly your sect is, but it doesn't matter, like what the church fathers said, and then what the various reforms happened, and all of that stuff, right? Like, you believe a lot of stuff on top of just the Bible. And of course you do, because that's how it's interpreted today. That's how the Bible is interpreted today. Whether you're Protestant or not, the way that people interpret the Bible is through the lens of 2,000 years of Christian history. It's not. Go ahead.
I'm not necessarily like arguing for like Christians throughout the ages. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Bible right now, as it was written like the 2,000 years ago, as it was completed 2,000 years ago, is an appropriate description of the past 500 years. Like we don't need to dissect what Christians did.
I don't think
like,
it is.
You know why?
Like the Bible as written doesn't even mention the Trinity.
Yeah, and that's fair. Like I don't necessarily like belabor the Trinity like aspect of the Bible. It's not, if it's not mentioned that much, I don't know why we're like super obsessed with it. It's just a quick description of the sort of nature of God, and people just cling on it because it's just a quick description. It's a fair description as well, but that doesn't mean it's like something that we need to constantly like belabor on.
But like,
I mean, we just different.
The view of the Bible also is just like it gives like, for example, if you just take the Bible as it was 2,000 years ago or so, something like that, it gives like contradictory views on how we should treat women, for example, right? And like we now understand that like we should all be treated equally, but like if you, depending on which part of the Bible you read, like it'll be like maybe, right? But we understand that that's actually really not how we should operate as a people.
There again, like I'm pretty sure you've had this discussion about women, like women, like a woman and a man being equal, or some like in this egalitarian. It exists in the Bible. It's not like a far
it exists in some
say
parts of the Bible, and it doesn't exist in, and the opposite exists in other parts of the Bible.
Especially it exists in the New Testament, right? And that's
except
the thing.
Except isn't it that, is it Paul? I can never remember. There's so many like early church apostles or whatever, but I think it was Paul that said that like women should be silent in church. And in Genesis it explicitly says that Eve was created as a helpmate, not as an equal, as a helpmate, as somebody to help Adam. And then all throughout the rest of the Hebrew Bible, there's tons and tons of like other things that make women, inferior. So like, but I mean, yeah, Paul says that like women should be silent in church, and that contradicts other verses in the Christian Bible that, says that actually, man or woman before God all are equal, things like that. So like it's just inconsistent. So it's really hard to actually figure out which part is the part that's relevant for modern day, for the modern day human condition.
I mean, given the fact that like Paul knows every scripture that he behind him, and he's doing a pretty much a summary of the God of the old by merging it with the God of the new, he knows what he's talking about. That's why you don't need to nitpick Paul as much because he knows what he's.
But then why did he say
there's
that women should be silent in church?
well, he's talking about like being in a congregation or like assembling together, right? He's not
So
talking
why
about
shouldn't
just
men
in
be
general.
silent in church? Also, you're peeking again, a little bit further from the mouth.
Right. So why is he nitpicking church?
No, why is he
Congregation?
nitpicking women?
No, there's a way men should act in a
Why doesn't he
in an
say it? Why
assembly.
does he say women should be quiet in church and not everybody
Oh,
should be quiet in church?
100% men are supposed to act in a certain way.
Why doesn't he say it?
Why doesn't he say it? He does say it again.
Why does
like,
he pick
that's-
on women? Why does it say
Again,
women
he-
should instead just ask their husbands when they get home?
That's also that's a more a family dynamic.
So yeah, it's
You
saying
know.
that women should be subservient to their husbands, but that's not relevant to today's human condition, right?
No, like in a marriage situation, it's different, right? In a congregation situation, it's different. Now, in a society, in like in a government, and just in our marketplace, I 100% believe that Paul thinks both men and women are equal.
But
100%.
then why doesn't he say anything about that? Why does he
Oh, he
instead
does-
say, women should be subservient, they should ask their husband the answers to their hard questions, they shouldn't talk in church? Like, I don't know. It's Paul pretty evidently just thinks women are less.
No. Again, these are within the context. Again, I know you guys hate that word. Within the, you have to be a Christian, go to church, be in church, be in a gathering, and like it's just like it's such a specific point. But when it comes to the overall like humanity aspect, Paul explicitly says that men and women are pretty much equal. Like men came out of women and women came out of men and blah blah blah. You should use those verses when it comes to humanity because those are the verses that talks about uh, us in general, especially in the marketplace and
I mean,
whatnot.
so in 1 Timothy verse 2, or chapter 2, verse 11 through 15, Paul writes,
Right.
"A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. She must be silent. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived, it was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner. But women will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith, love, and holiness with propriety." And again, this is in 1 Corinthians. "As in all the congregations of saints, women should remain silent in the churches. They are not allowed to speak, but must be in submission as the law says. If they want to inquire about something, they should ask their own husbands at home, for it is disgraceful for a woman to speak in church."
Right. Like
And
have you-
Ephesians 5, "Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Savior. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything." Like, dude just hates women.
no. You see, it's not. First of all, those are within a church, within a congregation. Like how
Within
even if
a
you're
marriage?
Christian, I'm a Christian. Within a marriage, right?
Wait, why does he say, yeah, women shouldn't be allowed to teach or have authority over a man. She has to be silent because she was deceived. Like, that's just misogyny, dude.
No, this is the thing. Like even as a
Like,
Christian,
Paul is famously misogynistic. Like,
even
not
as a
all of the
Christian-
Bible is, but Paul was.
No, let me ask you a question. Even as a
Yeah,
Christian,
sure.
how often do you think we're in church?
This doesn't
Especially
have
in
to do with
today's age.
only one of those verses had to do with churches.
No, yeah, exactly. The other one is
But
marriage. Marriage is-
the others had to do no. One of them was I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. Period.
yeah. No.
So
no,
women
that-
can't have authority over a man.
It was written to Timothy, who was a church leader. So
They were all
definitely-
written to well, not all of them, but the point is they were for everybody.
Yeah, it is for everybody. But he writes this to a guy who wants to lead a congregation. right? So it's within that, like, he's telling him how to have an orderly place, and he wants Paul knows that disorder is going to come regardless. So he's saying that, like, just like have some decorum in your congregation, and
Yeah,
this is
but
how you do
he's
it.
saying, well, he's saying women have some decorum. He's not saying everybody. He's saying women have decorum. Like,
Again,
I mean, look, it's okay. There were sexist people 2,000 years ago, and Paul probably just was one of them. Paul wasn't God. You don't have to defend him.
well, okay, there's specific verses that talk about women's nature and man's nature, and I believe in Corinthians, that talk about how a man came out of a woman, and not like those are better descriptions of humanity in terms of just us
I'm gonna go look for
interacting
this
in the
verse,
market.
by the way.
Sure, I can look it up too.
So 1 Corinthians 11, verse 9.
What is this? Yeah, I think that.
I don't know if this is the one you're thinking of, but let me just pull up the whole verse or the whole thing rather than just the single verse. 11 verse 9. So a man ought not to cover his head, since he is the image and glory of God, but the woman is the glory of man. For man did not come from woman, but woman from man. Neither was man created for woman, but woman for man. For this reason, a woman ought to have a sign of authority on her head because of the angels. In the Lord, however, woman is not independent of man, nor is man independent of woman. For just as woman came from man, so also man is born of woman. But everything comes from God. But it's saying that, like, yeah, women came from man, and that's why women have to cover their head, but men don't.
Again, like this is.
But that's sexism. Women have to cover their head, but men don't.
No. This is more about the flow, right? Again, like it's just talking about. It's just like this, like descending sort of like glory from like God onto humanity type.
But then why is it
that's-
distinguishing between why is it saying that like women have to do some things that men don't have to do?
No, he goes back and says, regardless, men even came out of women, so that's not, that's not. And
Yeah, this is just saying that to the Lord, though,
everything came from
everybody's
God.
subservient. But that doesn't mean
Yeah,
that men.
everybody-
So the rank is, so it's women at the bottom, then men, then God.
You see, it seems like that, but it's literally saying that.
It actually literally says that in this chapter. It literally says that. It says
But
1 Corinthians
nobody
chapter
is
11 verse 3.
independent.
But I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man. It literally gives you the hierarchy.
Yeah, but it
So
says
it goes
that
woman,
even-
and then the head of woman is man, and then the head of man is Christ, and the head of Christ is God. That's the hierarchy, and woman's at the bottom.
Yeah, even in that context, right? In that context, but in the Lord, right? It just makes it.
But it gives you a hierarchy. Why is it giving a hierarchy if it's not saying that women are inferior to men?
Because it's not necessarily inferiority. It literally tells.
Then
you,
why
like,
is there a
everybody-
hierarchy? That's what a hierarchy is. A hierarchy hierarchy is how you define superiority and inferiority. That's what hierarchy is.
He literally says everybody's subservient to God. It doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah,
that's
and women are subservient
that's
to
how
men.
he ends it. Yeah, he says
it
like,
says everybody's
everybody.
subservient to God, but women are
Yeah.
subservient to God through men.
No, the way he ends it is said, even the men came out of women. The last verse said, even the man.
Men
is
came out of
a
women,
woman.
but women are still
Yeah,
subservient to
you
men.
cannot be independent. He's checking the man's.
So just to be clear, you see 1 Corinthians 11:3, and where it says, "But I want you to understand that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is man, and the head of Christ is God." You see an explicit description of hierarchy in 1 Corinthians 11. And you're like, yeah, but it's not saying that one is better than the other.
Let me ask you a question. Simple question. Which
Sure,
is,
go ahead.
Do you think men are subservient to Christ? It's a simple.
Well,
yes
I
or
don't
no.
think any of it's true, but you do.
No, but I'm just
But
saying.
you do.
Given the fact that we know, like scripture, you know about Jesus Christ. You probably read about him.
I'm
You think
familiar with
we're-
who Jesus was. Yeah.
You think we're subservient to Christ?
Well, I mean, you're
No.
supposed to be.
We're supposed to be, but exactly that's the thing. Like this whole thing. is
But
like,
wait, so is 1 Corinthians 11 incorrect,
no, it's just.
or is it saying how it should be?
It should have been this like symbiote, like this.
So should
no,
we
not
have been?
symbiotic.
Wait, so is it
This-
true that the head of every man should be Christ?
This perfect harmony does not exist. It should have been.
Wait,
the
sorry.
head
Is
of me
is
should
it
have been
true?
Christ.
Sorry, this is a yes or no question. Is it true that the head of every man should be Christ?
Should be, yeah, yes.
Okay, so then it follows that the head of every woman should be man. It's in the same sentence.
Sure, but
So
I
you
would-
agree that women should be subservient to men?
But I also you should also agree that men are never subservient to Christ perfectly. This harmony doesn't exist.
So all you're saying is you're right. The world is not sexist and the world is not perfect, but it should be. That's what you're saying. Why
No, it's
would
not.
you say that?
I'm saying that this harmony does not exist in the way
The
that
harmony
you
being
think.
women are subservient to men.
No, the harmony starts with the whole, like, you know, accepting Jesus Christ. That's how the harmony.
Yeah, and then the
starts.
next step is
The
having women be
disharmony-
subservient to men.
Even in the when Eve ate apple, when Eve in the garden scene, I think one of the things that she was told that she would have this combatant thing going on with Adam, and that's like her nature now. Like that's just a nature. This combatant.
Sorry, what verse are you
nature.
talking about? Genesis
just
3
talking-
verse something?
Yeah, she.
Something about
Even
being
though
a
he would
combatant?
rule over her. No, he would rule over her, but she would, like, you know, he would dominate her, like, blah blah blah, like that's the fallen nature.
Your
of
desire
man.
will be for your husband and he will rule over you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
like,
so even God says that the husband should rule over the wife.
no, that's that's literally a curse. That's literally a curse.
Yeah. So, but that's what God said.
That's not a blessing.
Well, I understand that, but that's just how it.
Yeah.
That's just how it should be now. He's cursed. So God literally put a curse on Eve, so that now she has to be subservient to Adam.
Exactly, but this like
So
this
you're so
dominant-
God says, look, now now women have to be inferior to men.
that's a curse. That's a bad thing.
But
He's not saying
But
yay.
that's not an accurate description of the state of affairs of the world. So your
Oh,
whole
you don't- You don't think patriarchy is the default?
So I mean, yeah, it probably is.
Exactly.
But the
this
point is
disagrees
that
with it.
so the point is that in today's world, that's not something that we strive for, and it's not something that we it's not something that
Because-
I embody, at least. So like,
No.
it's not like, it may have been an accurate description of the state of affairs, 100 years ago, but I don't. Is it still? Who knows?
Oh, it's 100%
Is it-
is.
Should
100%
we? And yeah, to be clear, that's very culturally dependent. Thank you, 3 pips. That's a good point. Like, not all cultures are patriarchal, right?
But this is the thing. It's an apt description of.
So
the
are you
world.
saying
That's
that
my-
God?
that's my
Are you saying
beginning
that God
point.
did something evil by putting this curse on Eve?
The curse is evil. Nobody disagrees with that.
Okay, so God
Nobody-
did an evil thing.
The curse, of course, of course.
God
That's
can
the
do evil
curse-
things.
The curse when he put he obviously, like, the second they ate, he put a is it a curse or he?
Wait, so
I don't
can
know if
God
it's
do
the
evil
right wording.
things?
For them eating apple, he put a curse or whatever it is. I don't know what maybe curse is a very strong word.
Wait, can God do evil things?
No, okay, God cannot. No.
So was it
Okay.
good when God made women inferior to men?
She was made inferior because of the fruit.
Well, no. It says
Right.
that's not what it says in Genesis 3. It says, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." This is something that he's doing.
Yeah, well, again, like, we came to this point because of the fruit and whatnot, right? We have to.
Right. But God did it.
that's the whole
God gave
thing.
the curse. Right.
Okay, yeah.
So God did an
Yeah.
evil thing?
God did a sort of, I guess, a just thing, like,
But so is it good that God made women inferior to men?
no, that is not good. It's
God is
evident
not
that
good.
It's not, no, it's not. It's evident that pronouncement is bad because it's a curse. It would be a blessing.
So then
right?
God
He
made
would've
a bad
blessed
thing
her
happen.
by saying,
So God
he
made a
would've-
bad thing happen.
No, blessing and curses happen. God pronounces both things like throughout
So
Scripture.
God can make
That's-
bad things happen? I thought God could only do good.
No, it's just a. Well, I don't know how to describe a. It's a pronouncement. Like you say like this is going. It's
Yeah,
like
it's a thing that God makes happen, right?
not makes happen. It,
I mean, God definitely
Would-
made it happen. That was like the whole business. He said, "I will make like." What does he say? He says, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe," for example.
yeah, but
So he made that happen.
You obviously understand the fact, the whole like the garden scene, right? Well,
Yeah, I
ate
understand the
fruit
garden
and
scene. It
whatnot.
just shows
Yeah.
God acting vengefully, and in a sense, in an evil way. Which, by the way, is consistent with the Hebrew interpretation of God, and is not at all consistent with the Christian interpretation of God.
The honestly, the Old Testament God, you should be very. He seems very vengeful, and that's a very appropriate.
Yeah.
way of,
The Jewish interpretation of God is like the Jewish and even more so the ancient Hebrew interpretation of God is that God has feelings. God can be angry. That God's not like that. That is the Jewish / Hebrew interpretation of God. That God can cast thunder upon people, to do bad things to people, make people suffer. Like that. Like the Christian God, on the other hand, can't do that. But if you're saying they're the same thing, now you run into a problem.
Exactly, and the best way to understand God is through the Christian God, obviously. Like,
Well,
that's,
right,
it's
but then if you're presupposing that that's the same God that was in Genesis 3, well, now you have a problem, because in Genesis 3, that's the God of the Hebrews. That's the God that's angry and vengeful, that curses people, that does evil things.
right, and that's again like if pronouncing.
Did he
curses and
go
whatnot-
to anger management or something between 800 BC and when Jesus was born?
That's exactly what it was. Yeah, nobody.
So God can
he-
change.
He was appeased.
God can
that's one of the-
change.
No, not God can change. Like again, you're going to like you're just trying to pigeonhole like this conversation, and instead of just understanding the appropriate description of the world we live in according to Scripture.
But
That's
the
where,
description
like,
of the world we
conversation
live in, the description of the world we live in, you're saying, if you're saying
Right.
that the description of the world we live in is sexist, at least in many cultures, I would agree with you. But then,
Exactly.
then the descriptions of then the other parts, the not sexist parts of the Christian Bible, are then incorrect descriptions of the world we live in.
even
Because it'll say things like
sure.
So how can it be both?
No. I'm just saying you can pick out anomalies from the entire global society and be like, well, there you go. That's a matriarchal society, and that is not the overall description. It's just an anomaly, right? We should.
No, I'm talking about the Bible.
That,
I'm talking about the Bible.
Yeah.
I'm talking about when the Bible stresses gender equality rather than gender inequality, because you can't have it both ways, right?
the Bible is just by the fact that the curse is patriarchal.
Right. So there are
How to
parts
say
in the
that?
Bible where it's
That
very
is-
clearly like sexist, right? It's patriarchal, whatever. And then there are parts
Yeah.
of the Bible where it's very clearly not that. In fact, the opposite of that. And so the question is how can you have it both ways?
I don't see that the Bible is super. I guess the Old Testament, yeah, 100%, but the New Testament, I beg to differ. I don't think that we see it pretty differently, because I see
But it's the
When it
same
comes-
Bible, right? It's the same God.
no when it comes to the marketplace. Again, the marketplace meaning that it's not a church and it's not your home. Both men and women are equal, and the Bible is very consistent on that, and I maintain that. But and the perfect example that I gave you is that the fact that
What do you mean in the marketplace? You keep saying that. I don't know what that means.
in the marketplace is just outside your home and outside your church, right? And
So
it's,
nowhere in, say, Genesis 3 does it say anything that this will only apply in marriage and this will only apply in churches. It just says that he will rule over you. Your husband will
Yeah.
rule over you.
That is actually a universal description. Yeah.
Okay.
So that
right.
universal curse is is patriarchal. So just the fact that it's a curse and not a blessing makes God anti-patriotic societies, right? Just because he would have pronounced it as a blessing. I bless you, and that your man would dominate over you. That's a blessing. No, that he says I curse you, and the curse and how we manifest is by the dominance of man. So this is how you know it's a curse, and that's also a very appropriate description, because if you ask women and how society is more this is a man's world and it's a patriarchal society and whatnot, they would agree with this, that this is a shitty world to live in when the de facto is a patriarchal shit, and that's what I'm.
But then, so then, are you saying that But what about the places in the Bible where it says that men and women are both created in the image of God? That whole business, when it's saying that actually men and women are the same.
Well, again, that is not.
They're like what is it?
pronouncing-
Is this Galatians 2:11 or something like
No,
this?
that's also Genesis, right? I made
No, I'm
both
talking about
men and women.
I'm talking about Galatians 2:11.
Yeah, there's everybody's equal.
Or sorry. It's the one where like there is no man nor woman. Blah 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 blah. We're all
Exactly.
equal in the So which one
Exactly.
is it? Is it we're all
Exactly.
equal, or is it that women should be subservient to men? Which one is a more accurate description of?
That is actually a perfect point. I actually like. This is why I need to.
But which one is it? Which one is a correct description of the nature of the nature of humankind?
Whenever
The contradiction?
the Bible, no,
The
whenever the
contradiction is
Bible,
the,
no, when it's a universal / like this includes for everybody in every sphere, like description, that is the appropriate description for like how you view God, because it's saying everybody's equal in God. Like there's literally no Jew and Gentile, there's no division. Literally everybody's under, or like equal in God.
But then
Like-
why does it also say women are actually should be subservient?
Subservient in the context of marriage, in the context of marriage,
If you're all one in Jesus Christ,
of all-
why does Jesus Christ not apply in the context of marriage?
again, like I feel like the first of all, I need to be married for a long time to understand this, but the way I understand it is that first of all, if a husband tells his wife you need to be subservient, I feel like that's like the first no about this.
Well, then why?
scripture.
Then why does the Bible say that?
Well, it's literally saying like the way Christ loved the church, and that's how you should see it.
Well, that's not what it says in Genesis 3.
Well, the way you should make.
Wait,
her
so is the
subservient.
woman is the woman being subservient to the man? Is that like Jesus loving the church, or is that a curse that God gave to women? Which one is it?
Well, it's this whole self-sacrificial, crazy thing, which is like you.
Yeah.
as a
So
man,
is it like a glorious and virtuous thing for women to be subservient to their men, or is it a curse that women have to be subservient to their husbands?
Is it a curse that how the church is subservient to Christ? That's how.
That's
you
what I'm
should see
asking. That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Is it?
That we become subservient because we want we not because we want to be submissive. That's a weird way of describing it. We
Sorry, I
become
didn't follow.
subservient. We become subservient to Christ because we like his leadership. We like his we accept his sacrifice. We see it as a loving sacrifice. It's a love.
I don't think that this is
transaction.
answering my question.
That's because that's how the wife is supposed to.
So it's supposed to be a loving sacrifice, but then why is it a curse at the same time?
When it's forced, right? When it's forced. If
So-
you have you ever sacrificed anything for, I don't know, if you have for
Look,
your
I agree.
parents or
I agree that sacrifice
sacrificial
can be
love
good,
is a
but,
different. It's
So,
a
but
different.
which one is it? So is God forcing women to be subservient to their men, to their husbands, or is it a self-sacrificial love that women should be subservient to their husbands? Should she
Yeah, the
want to be
latter.
subservient to their husband, or is it a curse that she should try to get around? Should we want to have a patriarchy, or should we, or is it a curse that we should try to get around, that we should try to avoid?
I guess.
It seems like you're trying to have your cake and eat it too.
I guess given the fact that nobody wants to be subservient to anybody, it's a self-sacrificial move. So you know, but
So are you saying that, you know, we appreciate the glorious and virtuous sacrifice of women everywhere for allowing us to have a patriarchy? Is that what you're saying? Thank
we
you, women, for letting us
appreciate-
have a patriarchy. We appreciate you. Like, what?
if a woman chooses not to be subservient, that's okay as well.
No, but
because
this was supposed to be read as a mirror for the human condition, right?
No, it's not a perfect. Again, this is with all. I'm pretty.
Hold
sure
on, your
you're,
whole
like,
argument is that Christianity best represents the human condition. That was your
again,
whole
this-
argument.
Again, this is. You should also insert like the major themes of sin and whatnot, right? This is also like you have to acknowledge like the fallen nature and whatnot. So this is again,
No, I don't. No, I don't.
The-
Why
when
do
you
I have
say
to
the-
acknowledge
when
that?
you
I
say-
think that people are generally good.
generally good. I agree. I agree with that. Like, you know, I feel like the Bible agrees with that.
No,
You
the
know,
Bible
it's-
says that everybody's a sinner.
A sinner is not like, oh, you know, you're like
And in
a
God's
shitty
eye,
person.
all sins are equal. All deserving of
No.
hell.
I don't think the Bible is saying that like, you know, you lied today, you're a shitty person. Like it's not
Hold
like
on,
that.
hold on. Hold on. Because I think that you're about to get Bible slapped, because this is like literally a verse. Yeah, this is
I'm glad that you're
yeah,
like,
it's Romans 3:23. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God.
Yeah.
That's saying that everybody sucks.
everybody has, you know, sin is like missing the mark, right? Like you're imperfect because you brought up the perfect mirror that we are supposed to get from scripture. No, it's like the mirror. What I'm saying is like this is it's just saying that like you missed the mark by a little or a lot or whatever. That's sin. Don't make it this crazy thing that like, you know, you get slapped on like or whatever. Like you missing a little mark is like that's a sin in terms of just like what a sin is, especially in the context of God. Like that's what it's saying. That's all. Like don't like it's literally like in the
But
thing,
wait,
in
hold
the-
on. It literally equates murder with it literally equates murder with any like it sorry, I don't know why I can't put my words together. The whole it equates murder with quote unjustified anger, right?
But this is the thing, like
Whoever says
something
you fool will
yourself-
be liable to the hell of fire.
No, like understand you yourself.
It's Matthew
understand the
5:22.
fact that, no, you yourself understand the fact that you can call something. I'm trying to give a negative example. Like there's a lying in court and just lying to your
Okay,
mom
so
that you're gonna
Matthew
be home
5:22
by
says
5 o'clock.
Matthew 5:22 says, well, it says a lot of things, but the last part of the sentence is, and whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire.
Yeah, you fool, as
What?
in like.
So calling someone an idiot is a sin worthy of hell?
But I feel like that one is talking about. So you should as a raka, or like it's saying that then. So you should make amends, or you should make peace before he hands you over to the police, and the police hands you. You should make peace somewhere before this thing gets you in jail, because by the time you get there, you definitely pay the price. That is the thing. That's the wisdom out of this. It's not saying like hell. I guess hell is like the extreme. If you know up the ante to the max amount, but that is not what it's saying. It's saying just like.
No,
You know,
it's
just
saying
make
that
peace.
that's basically impossible to get into heaven unless you accept Jesus. That's what it's saying. That was like the whole point of the
Well,
at least of this
That-
part
that-
of the Sermon on the Mount.
yeah, that's the thing about this
But
sin
like that's
concept is
but
that
but then the mirror that it's holding up to humanity, or at least the mirror it's supposed to be holding up to humanity, is that people are generally bad because people deserve hell.
no people have missed the mark.
Okay, so it
That's
does
all.
the
That's an
does that mean
appropriate
that they
description
deserve
as well.
hell? Does missing the mark equate to deserving hell?
If, and then it says that there's a quick fix. You know.
Hold on,
to
that didn't
Christ.
answer my question.
That's because you didn't finish the story. Because that's not a full description. One of the
Well, I mean,
descriptions
yeah,
is
the story is well,
everybody has
just
missed the
accept
mark.
Jesus and then you can get to heaven for
Yeah.
free. But my question is if you don't do that,
exactly.
is everybody deserving of hell?
No,
Without
that's the
accepting
thing, that's
Jesus, is everybody deserving of hell? Because that's pretty damning. It's saying that it's saying that everybody deserves the worst hell, the worst torture imaginable because they're so sinful. That's what that's saying. And that's not an accurate description of the human condition.
I'm pretty sure even the description. Now you're getting into like, you know, the description of hell and heaven and whatnot. I'm talking about just reality and like our description, like because the more you get into that stuff, especially heaven and hell, we do know like most biblical scholars even agree that like even hell is not something that is like perfectly described in scripture. Neither is everybody agrees on what it is.
Matthew 5:22 says, anyone who says, you fool, will be in danger of the fire of hell. Presumably the fire of hell is dangerous,
Right.
probably burning, probably pretty painful, right?
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that it seems like the Sermon on the Mount, at least this part of it, is suggesting that the human condition is one of evil. It's one of being bad and sinful, but that's not. I don't think that's true at all.
I'm just saying, me and you can agree that there's a small lie and there's a big lie, and both lies are lies. We agree.
Yeah, but they're
We
not
agree.
equally bad.
I agree, and I feel like the biblical description of that is also like nobody. It's just saying that this is just a lie and this is a big lie. That's all, and both are sort of in separation. Pretty much, I think the best way to describe hell is a separation from God. That's the best way you can describe it, from the love of God. And
But then why does it say
that's-
danger of the fire of hell?
It's just a separation. I don't think the description of hell.
The fire of the dangerous fires of hell is just separation. It's like,
Because-
yeah, like if I'm separated from like my mom, I'm not like in danger of burning.
You know,
That's not what separation means, right?
I'm not trying to water it down, but I know that the description of hell is one of the most contested.
Well, but this one, I
doctrines.
agree that generally it is, but this part
Yeah.
is certainly not.
Because
It's
it says
referring
fire.
to fire. It's referring
Maybe
to
it's just
fire
like
and
a little
danger.
bit of fire. Maybe it's just like ouch.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous, right?
Well, what if it's like ouchie?
Forever?
No, it's probably this like, you know.
Just like a little oochie,
Ooh.
ouchie, little oochie, ouchie. Okay.
Yeah. That's it.
If
What about
I
that?
mean, look, man,
What-
is that what you
because-
believe?
No, because it fulfills the fact that it says fire, right?
Is that what
That's
you
all.
believe?
I don't think everybody's gonna like, you know.
Well,
be,
to be
like, I
fair,
don't think so.
later, isn't it in John where there's literally a lake of fire that's mentioned?
Right, but again, I don't think
Or
everybody.
sorry, that's not John.
everybody-
That's Revelation, right?
I don't think even though I'm not the judge or the whatever, I don't think everybody's going to go for a lot of ouchie. Like like it's honestly, this is also a very appropriate description of biblical hell. Like what I'm saying right
Just
now.
a lot of
is
ouchie or a little bit ouchie?
No, because God is going to you know, judge according to their works, and we. You know,
Wait,
and
are you
it could be
Protestant
just-
or are you Catholic?
I'm a Protestant. I'm a Christian, man.
Well, but so I thought that it was only Catholics who do the works and the faith. I thought Protestants were like through faith alone.
Yeah, faith alone.
But then why'd you say works? Why is God judging people based on their works?
like when it comes to hell, right? When it comes to
Well, yeah, that's the
like
question. Are they?
yeah.
Is it? Are you being judged based on your works? Because then, that's like
No,
Catholic
you're
dogma.
because no, even it's the concept of this like rewards, right? We still like everybody believes in rewards. Even Protestants that believe in faith alone would tell you that your salvation is not on salvation is pure faith, right? But
Mhm.
rewards are given, which I feel like I'm not gonna get that much, is based on like what like your it's not like yeah salvation is not based on the works. So and then when it comes to hell, even hell is like the way you get in is based on faith alone, and still
But you're saying that
you
like maybe hell is like only a little bit ouchy if you were like not a bad person. It's a lot ouchy if you were a really bad person. That kind of thing.
because you see this in scripture that God apportions uh judgment, if you will, based on how severe the actions are. So he nukes people for crazy shit, and then he just
Well,
for other shit.
to be clear, you're familiar with Lot's wife, right?
Yeah, that's an extreme version. Yeah,
Yeah, she
that's an
turned
extreme version.
around and she got turned into salt.
Yeah, it's not just the fact that she turned around, right?
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not. You have to look at their whole Lot has a very long track record of not being.
Wait a minute. Also, he tortured Job for fun.
Again, like that's not for fun. That is definitely.
You're right. It wasn't for fun. It was for a bet.
Again, that's not. I'm not. Let's not be reductionist here. You know what it is.
Wait a minute. Hold on. It literally was for a bet.
No, no, it's.
No, but
not.
it actually was. It actually was for a bet.
It's not like this cosmic bet, It's more for. We don't know what it's for. That's the.
No. So Satan. So God says to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? There is no one on earth like him. He is blameless and upright, a man who fears God and shuns evil." That's God saying this to Satan. And then Satan says, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not put a hedge around him and his household and everything he has? You have blessed the works of his hands, so that his flocks and herds are spread throughout the land. But now stretch out your hand and strike everything he has, and he surely will curse you to your face." So Satan's like, so Satan's like, yeah, Job's a good servant, but like, he's only a good servant because you give him nice stuff, right? But if you like strike him down, then he'll definitely curse you. And then God says, bet. Very well then. Everything he has is in your power, but on the man himself do not lay a finger. And then Satan's like, all right, I'm gonna go fuck with him. Like, it was literally a bet.
Okay, I'll give you the fact that it was a bet. Yeah, it was a.
And Job
cosmic
deserved none of it.
Yeah, he literally says he did. God himself says he deserved none of it. So God himself says it, right? Satan disagrees with it. Satan says he's only worshiping because you've given him stuff. That's the.
And then the story ends, and Satan was wrong the whole time.
Well, yeah. Well,
No, I mean that is how the story ends, right?
Because Job just Job was faithful, yeah. But
Which is like weird and silly, but like absolutely true.
Well,
like Job killed his children. Or sorry,
No,
God killed Job's children.
Again, like this also is like a somewhat appropriate description of the world. Back to the thing that I was saying, that bad things happen to good people, right?
Because God tells Satan that that's fine.
Because there is this
It also says that it's okay, that everything's okay at the end, even if even if your 3 children are killed, it's fine because God will give you 10 children after that. Like,
It's not
very
saying
weird.
that.
It's a very weird story.
Obviously, it's not saying that it's okay because he gave it back. That's not what it's saying. That's not what it's saying. Everybody is pretty much broken afterwards. Probably even God. So.
I don't
This is-
think that it says that they're broken at all.
No, I'm just saying. Even Job is not gonna be like, okay, I got, how many people back, how many children back, because
10. He got 10 children.
yeah,
And
that's what-
14,000 sheep.
Yeah, yeah.
Very weird and specific number, but
Yeah, it's-
nowhere in all the land were there found women as beautiful as Job's daughters. Did you know? It's a
Yeah.
weird book. All right.
No, it's
You've been on for a while, and there is a guest I want to get to, so I'm gonna let you go. But is that okay?
all right. Thanks, Dr. Blitz.
Take
You're
care.
Pretty show. Thanks.
All right. I have a guest who's been waiting for a good while. Tommy, can you hear me? Tomothy. Tomothy, can you hear me? Tomothy. Oh, I should do super chats. So I have a few. From Econo NYC, $5. That guy's friend has a degree in plantology. That was an early super chat. That's how we knew. Absolutely true. And from Nektu, thank you for the $5. I appreciate your live streams, Blitz, so thanks. I appreciate you. All right, it looks like Tomothy is not here, which is a bummer because Tomothy was here 8 minutes ago. All right. Let's move on to another guest on the Tiki Talk. By the way, the story of Job, like a version of the story of Job, is told in Good Omens, and it's very, very funny. And, like, silly and goofy. Oh, Tomothy's back. Tomothy, can you hear me?
Yes, if you can hear me.
Why can't I hear you?
Great. Well.
Oh,
what's
that's
up?
my fault.
Thank you for having me on.
I can hear you now. Great. Say something?
Great. Can you hear me?
Great. I think we're good. Yeah. What God do you
Awesome.
believe in, Tommy?
So I'm Catholic, specifically of the Thomistic tradition, specifically
Oh, that's a bummer.
classical theism. Oh no.
Okay.
Okay. Tell me why.
Because Thomism is dumb and incoherent, but that's fine. What would you say is your
Okay,
most
okay.
What would you say is the argument that you think would be most convincing to me that your position is true?
The effect of probably the argument for motion. I
Yeah,
feel
okay, you
like
wanna
it's
run through it?
irrefutable. By all means,
By the
if
way-
you have something to say, I'm sure you do.
Your mic is like kind of staticky. Are you on
Is
a
it any
good
better
Wi-Fi?
now?
Maybe.
It's kind of rainy over here right now. I'm sorry.
Well, we'll try to get through it. I don't think anybody's complaining, so yeah, so why not okay, why not give me the premises then?
Okay, sure. So usually I have it understood that the argument is laid out in the following format, that we see in the world that things move, and for something to move, it must be moved by something else, and that process cannot happen infinitely into the past. Therefore, there must be a prime mover, and this prime mover we know to be God. Now, that doesn't mean the Bible, right? But it means like one immovable, one all-knowing, all-powerful.
So
cetera, so on and so
I have
forth.
two contentions. I have a contention with the second premise and the third premise. So the second premise is for something to move, it must be moved by something else. And the third premise is you can't have an infinite regress. So the first question is, given what we understand about things like quantum mechanics, radioactive decay, as far as we can tell, is spontaneous. Namely, you have an atomic nucleus, and then
Yes.
for no reason at all, a neutron is ejected. There's not
Okay.
something pushing on the neutron. It's just ejected. So what is
Yeah.
so
So
that seems to just be in direct contradiction with the idea that for something to move, it must be moved by something else.
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like, from what I've read, and I mean, by all means, I'm a armchair scientist, right? I mean, I just read headlines and find what's cool, right? What I have understood is that like you have kind of an energy field underlying all the particles on the quantum level, and that's kind of more or less, quote unquote, what causes, because it gets kind of trippy at that level. That's quote unquote what causes.
Well, but it's not cause.
Things
So
to
that's
happen on
an explanation, but it's not
Okay.
something pushing on something else, right? It's not
Okay.
being moved by
Well,
something.
just
It's
because.
not like action reaction
Oh,
kind of thing.
right. So are you familiar then with the distinction between what's called potentiality and actuality?
Yeah, well, I'm mildly familiar with it. I know Thomists love it, but I don't accept it. So
Okay, I mean, I mean, if you did, we'd be having a different conversation, right? But
yeah.
well, yeah, okay. So basically, that things have a potential, and that things are.
And when you say potential,
something
you just
moves,
mean a way a thing could be, right?
potentially, yeah, potentially. But no. So yeah, you have that.
Well, so what do you
it's
mean by potential specifically?
Right. So for example, if I have water, it has the potential to be hot, and I can boil it, and then it'll be hot. But then
So
that
I'd really
potential
like a
is
definition
being
and
made
not an
actual
example.
by the. Right. Oh, okay, sure. Yikes. Okay. So let me see. I'm trying to formulate it in a good way. Let's see. So how about something being in a state of possibly being, but not yet?
So how?
work?
Wait, maybe I don't follow. What do you mean that something is in a state of possibly being?
So
Like,
I mean,
the way I see it, the
further
state.
define that, or
Well, maybe I'm just not understanding, but when I think about the state that a thing is in, it's the state that it is actually in, not the like.
right,
So
and that would be
so
called
it
actuality.
But my point is it doesn't seem to make sense to talk about the state of being possibly in some way. That doesn't seem like it's a state.
Well, I mean, something could. It's not necessarily a. Oh, okay. I can see what you mean. Yeah. Well, I don't know. That's interesting. That would be probably a point I'll have to think on, because, I mean, something could be, right.
Yeah, things can be
like-
certain ways. I agree.
Right. So then so then if things can be, then that would be a state of possibility, right?
Well, I just wouldn't
think
call
that's
it.
fair.
I don't think I would call it a state of possibility. I would just say like it's the way that a thing could be.
Right. Okay. Then let's roll with that.
So you're
That's
saying that
potentiality is, the way
so
that it could be.
potentiality is just like possible future worlds?
No. So for, like I was saying, I mean, it's like how you have water, right? I mean, I could put it on the stove and it could become hot. Water is potentially hot.
Yeah, but what that means is that there is a.
Actuality,
But what
Yeah.
it means for water to be potentially hot, at least insofar as I can tell, is that there exists some world where the future of that world contains the water being hot.
Yeah, and I can see how that would make sense. I mean, especially if you buy into the multiverse thing.
I'm not talking about like
Um,
physical worlds. I'm talking about like
okay.
possible worlds in like the modal sense.
Oh, you're talking about, okay. Like hypothetically.
Yeah.
Um,
That there is a
okay.
way the world could be that in the future it will be that
Yeah.
way.
Okay. Well, there we'd be getting into the weeds of the metaphysics, right? Or whether potentiality and hypothetically are the same thing.
They seem
Um,
like they kind of are.
Yeah,
Unless
they
you
seem
mean
like they
some
are,
other
right?
way. Well, so let me ask you this: why is bringing up potentiality versus actuality relevant for the argument for motion?
Oh, right. Because I mean, if something could potentially be, then and it is actualized by something else, then It's
So
I
is
mean,
that what is meant by the mover?
right.
Just the thing
That's
that
what well, that's
actualizes
that's what's meant by
potential?
movement. Yeah,
Okay.
something that actualized. Right. That's right. And that's why that's where original
So
conversation. What is
so roughly by the second premise, you just mean that there is a cause for every effect?
Unless the cause is in itself, yeah. So that, but then we're getting into PSR. If you're familiar with, like, I mean, I'm sure you are.
Well, yeah. So I'm
post-sufficient
familiar with that.
reason.
So explanation and cause are different things, though, right?
Yeah,
Like we're talking
well,
about physical
are they?
causes, right?
Okay.
I imagine, like, because we're
not
talking,
necessarily.
because the first premise was like things in the world, things move in the world, which now I
Right.
think I'm interpreting this correctly. That you mean there are effects in the world.
Yeah, well, I mean, so, but then that would be different, a little, because that would be a different argument, right? That would be the argument from causality.
So what's the distinction here?
That's two. Precisely, I'll be very honest, I'm not exactly sure.
They seem like they're the same thing.
I know it seems that way, but I forget. It's like, you know, I read about this stuff years ago, and I'm partially on this conversation to like refresh, because
Sure.
I've forgotten a lot of it. But yeah, but I mean, as far as those go, it's metaphysical. It has something to do with the philosophy, and if you get into the weeds, they are different. I just forget exactly what those differences are.
Okay.
But I mean, I think for the sake of conversation and pushing forward, I think we could, for now, act as if they are the same.
Okay. And I think that, like, if there's an additional people are complaining about the mic. Do you have headphones?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I actually don't
yeah,
think it's a
let me
connection
try.
thing. It says your connection's fine.
Okay.
Because if you have headphones,
Let
it
me
might
see.
fix it. Yeah, let's see. Are we losing viewers because of the mic? No, well, we're doing okay.
Is that better?
It might be. Like, the audio
Okay,
quality is not
I'm
as
sorry.
good, but I don't think. No, you're fine. I think it's actually okay. Like, the audio quality is not great, but at least it's not like being staticky. So I think you're okay. Oh, did he just lose connection? Requests are on. Elder Brewer requests are on. Oh, he just disconnected.
Oh, I didn't mean to. Hello?
Oh, you're back. I can hear you. You're good.
Okay, cool. I'm sorry. Okay, no, so yeah, I mean, as far as the distinctions go, there is a difference. I can't remember it right now, so for the moment being, we can operate as if there isn't.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So then so just to recapitulate, roughly, there are things that happen in the world. Things that happen in the world have causes. You can't
Right.
have an infinite chain of causes. Therefore, there must be a first cause. Something like that, right?
Okay. Yeah. Well, also, I mean, to be fair, when motion is said, it's for example too. It's talked about in terms of like being. So it's motion of being. So what that means is that, for example, like I can have, like, I mean, the virtue of being brave, right? And then, like, or courage, rather, it might be said, and like over time, as I experience perhaps like fearful situations where I stand up to them, then I'm being actualized for courage, if that makes sense. So I'm
Okay,
actualizing the virtue of courage by facing those situations. So that's potential, same thing. I'm potentially courageous and I'm being actually made courageous. You have potentiality and actuality.
Okay, so now the question is why? What's the problem with an infinite regress?
Yeah, so usually with an infinite regress, we think of an infinite regress in time, which even actually, I don't know if you know, St. Thomas Aquinas would concede that we can't know by reason alone whether there is an infinite regress in time or not.
Sure.
But what he does say that is that there can't be an infinite regress in being. There can't be an infinite regress in being.
Why not?
Because things depend on their existence for each other. I mean, things depend on each other for their existence.
Wait a minute.
So,
why is that true?
Because things depend on each other for their existence.
That doesn't seem clear at all. Like, I mean, it seems like there are things that exist kind of independently of each other.
I know. But let me explain a little further.
Sure.
So the classic example that's used is, for example, like a chandelier, right? And if you saw a chandelier and you perhaps couldn't see the ceiling, then you would know that at some point it terminates on a ceiling somewhere. Like that would be a reasonable conclusion. But it wouldn't be reasonable to say that the chain goes on forever. Does that make sense? Or perhaps a locomotive too is the other example. Sure, tell me.
Why wouldn't that be reasonable to? I mean, like you and I both know how chandeliers work, but like if I had never seen a chandelier before, why wouldn't it be reasonable for me to think that the chain just goes on forever?
Because let's see. I mean, reason tells us that it must be chained to something, right? I mean, like it must be attached to something. Because if it goes on forever,
so what's the reason that tells us that?
I mean, I guess. Yeah, I'm trying to think through it. I think perhaps it could be then that, like we know that like material realities are not infinite by nature.
Do we? I mean, we don't even. But wait a minute. But didn't you just say that Aquinas said, yeah, we can't know through reason alone that the universe hasn't always existed?
Oh, but that's my example. I mean, Aquinas didn't have chandeliers. At least I don't think so. Maybe he did. I don't know.
I'm sure that they had rope or something.
Yeah, that's true. Fair enough. Yeah. No, I'm not saying I'm an expert. I'm fine. Going back and forth with you a little bit. Yeah. So let's see. Why is that true? Why is it true that? I mean, I don't know. I guess you kind of you got me to the good. I've been trying to look for this. Thank you. I'm grateful for that. I think you got me to the point of what might be considered my brute fact. That it would be reasonable that something terminates in the beginning.
So this is an issue that I run into with a lot of like, not every theist is this way. There are a lot of like so a lot of theists, like the reason why they end up, well, the reason that they try to convince me with usually ends up with saying, well, the universe couldn't have always been here or something along those lines, or you have to have some foundational cause. But like and people will say, but that's a contradiction, but it's just not clear to me that it is. Yeah. Right. Like.
Yeah, and you're not the first person to make that objection, and I'm not the first person that would answer it.
Right.
But yeah, if metaphysics is your cup of tea and you'd really like to get into the weeds of this, a professor who used to be an atheist but actually ended up becoming Catholic, his name is Ed Fazer, and he wrote a book called 5 Proofs for the Existence of God. And for your platform, at the bare minimum, it would be very, very useful to at least know the arguments in kind of the best form, and you can.
How do you spell his name? How do you spell his name?
His name is Ed. So and then F-E-S-E-R.
Okay. I'll take a look.
I really get attracted with it. Thank you. I'm very grateful that you're so honest.
Yeah, I mean, like, I can't make any guarantees as to when I'll take a look because I'm in the middle of a book right now that I promised a friend I'd read, and but we'll see. I might have a lot of time this summer, so.
Yeah, I have an impossible reading list in front of me too.
I know it's.
But yeah, okay. Well, I think the points that I did discuss, and he really does get into the weeds of like why it is reasonable for things, so to speak, to have a beginning, even though, I mean, we did say, like, concede that it's possible for the universe to have gone on backwards in time, but it's not, I will say that I don't know exactly how it goes, but I know that the distinction is that what's being talked about in the argument for motion is it's not a backwards in time. It's it's
like a backwards in cause or something like that.
So to speak, but there we would get perhaps into the third way of contingency, that things depend on each other for their existence. Like, for example, how I would depend on my mother and father for existence,
right?
Or so on and so forth. And then there was like, something that caused the primordial soup to become bacteria or whatever.
Right.
But yeah. Hey, well, I'm very grateful. You've been very, very nice to me, and
yeah, of course.
I hope your stream goes well.
Thanks, bud. Have a good one. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna bring up Brad because Brad's also been wanting to come up for a while, and I think he's finally here. So let's bring up Brad. Brad, can you hear me? Bradley? I can't hear you, but you can presumably hear me? Bradley, your microphone isn't working. Let me try restarting your mic for you. Oh, it says that you have like a terrible connection. Oh, I can hear you. I can hear you. Wonderful. Can you hear me, Brad?
Awesome. Man, yeah, I can hear you good. Man, it's impossible to get through to you guys.
Yeah, I mean,
I was listening to you guys talk about slaves yesterday.
oh
Slaves.
yeah. I remember that you were in the chat. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, everybody was giving me crap because I'm a technophobe, to be honest. But that's Old Testament law. I mean, I know we believe in the Bible, you guys don't, so it doesn't really matter here nor there. But listening to them get these scriptures so screwed up is like I was ready to chew my hammer in half in my truck. But
Fair. So what do you want to talk about? What would you say?
Well, I just
go ahead.
Well, I mean, I can't prove to you that there's a God, just like you can't prove to me that there's not one. But a lot of the scriptures that, if start explaining, the burden of proof is on our shoulders. That's just the way it is. If you want to find something out, for sure, I'm the biggest skeptic that ever walked. I will go lengths to debunk something until I figure it out. And if I can't figure it out, like some of the stuff I've seen in the sky, could not figure out what it is. And it drives me crazy because I can't figure it out. But, you know, the Bible, you got to live it by the letter to experience what all these people are trying to call in and trying to say. And they get, you know, they get confused on some of the scriptures, but they can't really get out through the scriptures what they're wanting to say, which the scriptures don't do any good when you're talking to atheists. So that's kind of neither here nor there. But as far as the Old Testament and the New Testament, the thief on the cross not being baptized, and the slaves, some of the slaves were rich. They actually, a lot of the slaves back then had a lot of money. I mean,
so can I ask you something?
They were like family.
Can I ask you something? Yeah. So you said you're the biggest skeptic, sure. Right? Why do you believe?
Yeah, until I can figure it out. Yeah.
Right. So why do you believe that Jesus rose from the dead?
Well, because when I discovered the Bible and that way of life, one, I was at the end of my rope. I was drugged out, homeless. I tried everything but God. And I met a guy, you know, one night at a party, we were doing drugs. You know, me and him were the last two up. And it seems like that's when people talk about God the most, when they're on drugs, because they know they shouldn't be doing it. But anyway, we were, and I was like, it got on the Bible. The discussion got on the Bible. I was like, man, this dude like answers every single thing I ask him. He answers me with a scripture out of the Bible. I didn't know the Bible then. This was like 25 years ago. I was like, how do you know so much about the Bible? Why are you not in church? We're sitting here doing cocaine. That's
so
sin.
So Brad, Brad, maybe I was kind of vague. So I mean, like what kind of evidence? Because what skeptics want is they want an explanation, or they want an evidence for things that are otherwise,
I got
crazy.
Sidetracked.
Yeah. So like what kind of evidence convinced you that he rose from the dead? I'm actually going to turn off your video, by the way. Maybe the connection would be... Where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Hello?
Oh, there he is. I'm going to turn off your video because the...
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
See, this is a time like this. I say the devil don't want me telling y'all this.
Yeah, apparently not. Yeah, so what...
says that, but trust me.
So what was the evidence that convinced you that Jesus rose from the dead? No, but like you can apply the lessons from the Bible without actually believing that Jesus rose from the dead. Yeah. Oh boy. God damn it.
You never could think of.
I knew it. Sorry, Brad, I gotta kick you. My live just got restricted because he said drugs. We just got restricted because he said drugs. I should have stopped him. Sorry, Brad, if you're still listening, I had to kick you. I actually have to end the live. And I'm not going to restart because I have a meeting in like 20 minutes anyway. I should have been more careful. Sorry, y'all. Brad, if you're still here, we can talk again. You just can't mention drugs. Just not today because I gotta end the live anyway because my live's been restricted. So everybody, it was lovely seeing you. We are going to do a peer review tomorrow, and so tune in for that. Should be a good time. Take care.